and destroying the scouting forces. He also sacked many castles, or their respective towns, in the Stormlands, Vale, and Reach, even Fall Hall, Bronze Egget, Blackhaven, Mistwood, Nightsong, Sharp Point, Greenstone, Longbow Hall, Iron Oaks, Runestone, Gulltown, Old Anchor, Grassy Vale, Longtable, Cinder Hall, Ashford, Bitterbridge, and Golden Grove. He ordered no one from the Eastern Navy ever enter the Riverlands and Dawn, as they remained neutral in this invasion. He single-handedly ruined the Vale, and the Stormlands, and helped in the burning of the Reach. 60% of everything recovered went to Winterfell and the North, while the rest was given to the soldiers. With all these new resources, Prince Theon went back to the North as a hero. He was given the name the Hungry Wolf for his gaunt and skinny appearance. The army and the small folk would argue about which of his names was more appropriate. However, Prince Theon was not finished in his revenge. He was very pissed at the Andals and decided to retaliate by attacking the Andal homelands, Andalos. He pillaged and stole from Andalos Hills, destroying House 7 Star for attacking the north. He would burn 3 Andal houses, who had attacked his men at night and sought refuge at the nearby September. Theon would bar the doors and light the fire that destroyed the entire September and the 3 houses. He also raided the legendary tomb of Hugh of the Hill, burning the entire tomb to the ground, after taking the 7-starred crown, the original copy of the 7-point star, and all of the riches buried with the legendary figure, which only increased his reputation as one of the most dangerous Stark in history. The South will whisper about Theon the Hungry Wolf, and his actions for millenniums. His actions during the First Andal Crusade would be debated for years in ethics discussion, as well as studied during strategy class. He was the perfect example of a Stark. Honorable, loyal, truthful, and blunt, and when angered he was dangerous, wild, ruthless and protective. Underscore 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 underscore. On the other side of the world, a few moons back, King Tytos was atop his ship and the flagship of the Lannister Navy, Golden Lion. He was unaware of the massive failures and death that his allies was currently facing or doomed to face. His navy was sailing towards Pike, the home of the Greyjoys, the High Magna of the Iron Islands. They knew Magna Yara Greyjoy and Prince Brandon was his opposition. King Tytos knew of Yara and Brando, and their betrothal. He also knew that they have yet to fail a single raid of the Westerlands. It was not just small raids of minor towns. They had successfully raided and burned parts of major keeps such as the Crag and even Lannisport. He had planned to go straight for Pike and not get lured to a prolonged sea battle anywhere. As he neared Island of Pike, he saw a small part of the Iron Fleet attacking the side of his navy. Understanding the enemy's plan, he yelled out, "Don't follow them. You may try and sink them, but do not follow them." After a few minutes of attacking, the ships sailed away, moving much faster due to the Ironborns favoring the longship. 30 minutes later they once again attacked from another side, hoping to draw them out. The boats left just like the other had, after sinking a few of his ships, without losing a single one of their ships. Ignoring these few minor skirmishes, their ships had landed on a beach. Lannister men dismounted and attempted to make it up the beach before. However, as they made their way up, they began to face waves of arrows kill dozens of Lannister men with each arrow. King Tytos was shocked. "Get back to the boats. They somehow knew we were going to land here." He turned around and tried to make it back to his boat. King Tytos was very confused. How did they know that they were going to land on this particular beach? The longships could not have predicted their destination, sailed back to Pike, informed their leaders, and have them prepared and ready for their landing. It was simply not possible. King Tytos barely got atop of Golden Lion and pushed out of the beach, before he was shot off the boat, landing on the soft sand and passing out. Underscore 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 underscore. He shot awake to the screams of men and saw the Golden Lion in half, splintered by the Old Kraken, the ship of High Magna Yara Greyjoy. She attacked Lannister men with 2 small hatchets, throwing them at enemies with one, then killing another with the other, retrieving the first, then repeating the process. Prince Brandon, the youngest of the Stark brothers, wielded a war spear and throwing daggers. Fucking pissed, he grabbed a fallen soldier's blade, having lost his in the fall off of his ship, and charged at Yera. It would have been a close fight even without his head ringing from being thrown off of his boat, but with the ringing head and blurring vision, he made mistakes after mistakes which Yera took advantage of, cutting him and his armor off. With his right arm exposed, she swung hard down on his arm, cutting the right one off. When he was recoiling from the pain, Yera swung her hatchet down on his head, ending King Tytos' life. Meanwhile Prince Brandon was fending off 10-foot soldiers trying to support their king. He was watching them approaching him carefully. Knowing that he would not win if all of them attacked him at once, decided to strike first. He charged, stabbing one in the heart with his spear. He took his right hand off of the spear to throw one of his throwing knives into the closest man. He then yanked out the spear and spun it, smacking another soldier in the face, forcing him to recoil further away. He then kicked another soldier into another one, throwing both of them into the ground before stabbing the top soldier with his spear and pining the other one. Not having enough time to pull out the spear, he jumped away as a blade comes down on him. He then charges the soldier who attacked him, deflecting the next attack with his throwing knife, and stabs the man in the eye with the dagger. He still had 3 blades, so he threw one into another soldier's throat, then held both daggers. He charged at a soldier, who retaliated with an overhead swing. He blocked it with his 2 daggers, then pulled off one of the blades out of the lock, holding the sword up with the dagger held in his right hand, and stabbed the soldier in his neck with the one on his left. He immediately pulled it out and threw it into another soldier who was charging him. He quickly looked at the situation and saw that there were 2 men left, and his spear in behind them. He kicked the sand towards the soldier closest to him, blinding the soldier. He threw his last dagger at the other soldier. Prince Brandon ran to grab the spear. He quickly turned and stabbed the new soldier who came running after him, in the mouth. The blade of the spear came out the back of his head. Before the soldier could fall down and trap his spear, Brandon yanked it out. The 3 guys left looked both in shock and awe. They were all favoring injuries from the fight, as they were blinded man, the soldier who was trapped underneath the other soldier and spear, and finally the soldier who was smacked in the jaw with his spear. Deciding to end this quickly, Prince Brandon just charged the closest one and stabbed his hand, forcing the man to drop his sword. Prince Brandon kicked another soldier away, then backed up against a turned-over boat. He then stepped forward to stab one of the soldiers in the neck with his spear and smacked the one with the injured hand with the end of his spear. He pulled the spear out with his right hand and threw it into the other soldier who was kicked away. He then walked over to the last guy on the floor dazed from being smashed in the face, and stabbed him with his own sword. Underscore 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 underscore. The battle was a death trap for the Lannisters. Many Lannister men died in this pointless endeavor. The waves of arrows and the Ironborn berserkers cut through the untrained Lannister forces like cheese. Magna Yera and Prince Brandon then sailed the Iron Fleet down south, to the Westerlands, and sacked the entire region. Without a navy, a lot of Lannisport got burned to the ground, after all valuables were stolen. They wished to sack Casterly Rock, but could not as the Ironborn were reavers. Out of all the goods, 40% of it went to Winterfell and House Stark, and 30% went to Pike and House Greyjoy, and the rest were given to the soldiers. With no navy or army, the quick raids of the Ironborn was unstoppable. The Crag, Feastfire, Ke, Fair Castle, Crickenell, Old Oak, Old Town, and 3 Towers were all ransacked. They ignored Brightwater Keep and Honeyhold, and went straight to Horn Hill. Lord Tarly was with the army that tried to attack the north, and he had yet to return, meaning the castle was manned by his young son. Yera Greyjoy's younger brother, Jameson Greyjoy, took 3 salt wives. One was a daughter of House Lannister, one came from House Hightower, and one came from House Gardener. He would be one of the last members of the Ironborn nobility to take salt wives. Underscore 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 underscore. House Arinze was a 9-year-old boy and could not rule effectively. Everybody doubted him, questioned him, and gave him contradicting advice, which led to no action being taken to stop the North for 5 years, before King Jonarin put his foot down and started to lead the country himself. During those 5 years, the Vale became a mess and King Jonarin would spend the rest of his life putting the Vale back together. The combination of the recent assimilation to the Andal culture and damage caused by House Stark led to the Vale having a long recovery period. By then, House Stark was able to steal all of the major trade routes, attracting all of trade guilds and traders from Essos with the Wolf Canal, which allowed for trade boats to reach the other side of Westeros far faster. White Harbor was a very useful place to stop and restock before going through the canal and useful in trading through the land by caravan. Underscore 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 underscore. House Durrandon was able to immediately start putting the Stormlands back together, as Prince Doran IX, now King Doran IX, was a very good ruler, and was able to his country back together faster than House Arryn. But it still would take his son's generation to be able to heal from the northern retaliation, and a few more generations before their lands had assimilated to the Andal culture. Underscore 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 underscore. House Gardener also fared just slightly better than House Arryn. The heir of House Gardener was also a kid of 9, but he was able to take control at the age of 13 rather than 14, and he was able to start slightly further ahead of the Arryns. King Male Gardener's grandson would put the Reach back together, praying that no winter longer than a year or two would come. Underscore 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 underscore. House Lannister fared the best out of all the 4 great houses that attacked the north. King Tytos' son Tyrion was a ruthless but effective leader. He was able to put the Westerlands back together from the northern retaliation by his death. He was known for putting down rebellions and bandits quickly and ruthlessly, making an example of them every time. The first men, scared of King Tyrion's ruthlessness, did not make much protests against the assimilation of the Andal culture, and by King Tyrion's son the Westerlands had been assimilated to the Andal culture. Underscore 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 underscore. The 7 took a devastating hit. They had just came to the Westeros with many of the small folk being used to the old gods. When the Septon tried killing the old gods' believers, they got beaten, killed, and sent back by the small folk who all practiced wrestling, a fun pastime for the children. The fact that the 7 required you to make donations and follow hundreds of rules and make a dozen donation, while the old gods only required you to tend the weirwood trees and follow very few rules, lead to far less conversions than they had hoped, and true old god believers had moved to the north. Underscore 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 underscore. 5 years the north has been ransacking the southern lands, and the 4 great houses got together with King Thena and begged him to stop. King Thena replied with, "I will stop, but only if you meet my demands. First, you must give me 20 chests filled with precious gems, gold, and silver. Second, you must give me 50 carts full of wheat and food. Third, I need the Shield Islands, Fair Isle, and the Arbor. You will have 3 moons to comply. Should you attempt to perform a sneak attack, all attacks shall begin once more. It is irrelevant if only one house performs the sneak attack. All other house will suffer for the other's actions." After the First Andal Crusade against the North became known as the Grey Heart of Westeros. House Redwyne, House Lux, and House Black swore themselves to House Greyjoy. House Redwynes was furious at the Gardeners and their demand to abandon their ancestral home with the Redwyne fleets or face death. House Redwyne spit upon the Gardeners' demands and swore fealty to House Greyjoy. With the newly conquered islands, House Stark was able to award it to new Magners, who proved themselves in the war, also known as the Andal's Folly, Andal's Breaking, or the Seven's Failure. House Lux was awarded the Fair Isle. James Lux was a half-northern, half-western soldier, that saved Magna Jameson Greyjoy's life. He took on the name Lux, with a golden sun rising over the blue ocean as his sigil. Their words were to be, "From dawn we watch." He then swore himself to House Greyjoy and had command of a part of the Western Navy. Enough to slow down the Lannisters' navy should they decide to attack the north again. House Black was given the Shield Island. House Black was an old northern house. One could trace their ancestors back to the first Magners to swear himself to House Stark. Their keep in the Neck fell into disrepair as they failed to make significant amount of money. Instead of rebuilding, they had decided to travel through Essos, collecting wealth and knowledge. They had come back to Winterfell 3 years before the attack and was looking to purchase some land from House Stark before the fight. They kept faith with House Stark, even though they were away for centuries. King Thena awarded them the island because of their history and their eagerness to prove themselves to House Stark. They had also sworn themselves to House Greyjoy. Underscore 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 underscore. 7 years after the Andal invasion, King Thena the Diligent Stark died, and Crown Prince Theon the Hungry Wolf Stark was crowned. As all the previously Stark kings did, he looked over all of the items in the north. Everything seemed to be well till he reached the Night's Watch. After Brandon the Breaker killed the Night's King and Queen, he enacted strict policies to ensure the neutrality of the wall. He could now see its effects after 2,000 years. The Night Fort was beginning to be abandoned and so were 2 other forts. Whilst this downward decline was very minimal, it was a steady decrease. Whilst the North remembers the necessity of the Night's Watch and the wall, the southern kingdoms and Andal culture in their dislike of the North, sent fewer and fewer criminals to the wall. Even with the House Stark's power, they couldn't man the entire wall themselves and still have an army to defend against the south. So after 3 days of deliberation and praying, he made a bold decision. He went to the wall with half of his army and went to the Magna commander and said, after taking a close look at the wall, "I have decided to rework the Night's Watch. They have slowly fallen over the 2,000 years. Already 3 forts have been abandoned. Instead they shall be gifted to different houses to rule, all with the singular purpose to watch for the White Walkers." There was protest from men of the Night's Watch yelling in outrage. "Members of the Night's Watch, I am not doing this as because of the current members. I do this solely because I fear that the Night's Watch will continue to fall in disrepair and they will not be adequate defense from the White Walker. The Order will still exist, and work in tandem with the Magna of the Wall." The Magna commander Jorah Mormont said, "The wall has maintained 2,000 years of neutrality and the Night's Watch has been an honorable institution." With this many men murmured in agreement. But, King Theon Stark is correct, Brandon the Builder Stark built this wall to keep out the White Walkers. The Night's Watch was the defense against the White Walkers and their Night King. It has been written in over 100 books in both the Wall and the Great Library of Winterfell. We are starting to fail in manning and guarding the wall. We have less and less volunteers. I fear in another 1,000 years, we will not be able to properly use the Brandon's gift. Soon enough, barely any of the forts along the wall will be manned. To disagree with King Theon, we would be failing the sole reason which the Night's Watch was built upon. Magna Jorah then turned to King Theon and asked, "King Theon, do you truly believe that this will be the best course of action to stop the White Walkers should they return?" "I do." "Then I shall do as you say. The Order of the Night's Watch shall still remain separate from the kingdoms, however, we shall work in tandem with the Magnas of the Wall. I shall form the houses that shall man the wall now." Magna Commander Mormont. "How is the Magna of the Shadow Tower?" "His name is Jameson Shadow. He says that his first name was given after a past Stark king that helped his grandfather. His last name was given because of his remarkable ability to blend in with the shadows. He was a very capable ranger, only stepping down as the first ranger to become the acting Magna of the Shadow Tower." "Very well, Please inform Jameson Shadow that he is the new Magna of the Shadow Tower all the way till the Grey Guard. He shall be known as the first Magna of House Shadow, and he must make his own sigil and choose his house words. He must also visit Castle Black to swear oaths to House Blackwatch. Now who is the acting Magna of Eastwatch by Sea? A fifth-born son of House Umber, Your Grace. His name is John Umber, and he knew that it would be very unlikely for him to be able to inherit anything, so he joined the Night's Watch. He is both a skilled warrior and a skilled builder. Again, inform him that he has to take on a new name, rather than Umber, new words, sigil, and maybe a better name for Eastwatch by the Sea. He must renounce all of his claims on the Umber holding, and he must swear his oaths to House Blackwatch and shall be Magna of Eastwatch by the Sea with hopefully a better name. He shall guard all the way to the Long Barrow. He did this for 2 other forts. House Sable was formed, reaching forts 13 to 15, which included Woods Watch by the Pool, Sable Hall, and Reimagate. They were to take Sable Hall as their keep. House Icemark was formed as well, reaching from forts 5 through 9, which included Stony Door, Hoarfrost Hill, Icemark, Night Fort, and Deep Lake. He made them come to Castle Black and swear themselves to House Blackwatch. Finally, King Theon turned to Magna Commander Mormont asked, "And what is your story?" "I am the third-born son of House Mormont. But I also have 2 older sisters, so I will be the last to inherit anything. Rather than hoping and waiting, I decided it would be better for me to move on, and try to make my name as a member of the Night's Watch. I believe I have done well for myself." An interesting story, Magna Commander Mormont. Your dedication to the Night's Watch is extraordinary. Such loyalty must be rewarded. I name you Magna Blackwatch, Magna of Castle Black, Guardian of the Forts 10 through 12, High Magna of the Wall. After receiving your oaths from House Shadow, House Sable, House Icemark, and House Eastwatch, you are to get married and continue your line as the High Magna of the Wall and the fire that burns against the cold. Magna Blackwatch looked at King Theon in pure shock, before remembering his manners and said, "Thank you so much, Your Grace. I don't deserve this honor. Your purpose remains the same. Only this time you may marry to continue your line. Your own personal guard will be the new watchers on the wall. This way, you can grow on your own, without having to rely upon other houses. You and the 5 new Magnas will be the only members of the Night's Watch which shall be allowed to hold their titles, to allow a smoother transition. However, after you step down from the position, the Night's Watch must elect their own new commanders to organize the watch. Underscore 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 underscore. King Ignotus the Administrator began to feel the stress of ruling a large successful country like the North as the single central government system. Worried by the size of their country and the difficulties faced in raising a large host, as the Starks needed to properly collect and position their men, King Ignotus began to combat such inefficiencies. First, the variation in laws and ruling by the different Magnas were handled by King Ignotus, when he developed the first code of concrete laws for the North. It was heavily influenced by the old way and was reinforced to all Magnas of the North. They were allowed to deal with local issues, such as economic downturns, property disputes, criminal proceedings, while following the system of law. While the House Stark focused upon their own lands, major projects of their countries, developing and maintaining a fair system of laws, inspiring loyalty within the people, etc. King Ignotus also worked on developing the communication system of the North. Common messages /commands in summer were handled with a raven, while during winter it would be handled by a squadron of sled riders. More important letters /commands was denoted by a personal messenger. Each Magnas were commanded to maintain as many messengers as there were villages and cities within their lands, so when a host was required, each Magna could collect them quickly. This in combination with the Great Northern roads to the major castles and the dirt road to surrounding towns and villages, allowed for effective communication throughout the north. King Ignotus' laws and communication system would be the foundation upon further northern development. Underscore 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 underscore. Around 1,000 years had passed with many Stark kings. Soon the Dornish and the North had an unspoken agreement to leave the northern trade routes to the north and the southern trade routes to the Martells and Dane, allowing them raising their strength and wealth. The North, having one of the biggest forests in the known world, kept and maintained by the children of the forest, became a major export in timber and wood and many different woodworking techniques. The Danes secured a good alliance with House Stark for keeping with the first men culture and were able to use northern woods to form a great fleet with many trade and military boats. Ignotus propaganda begins to take root in the northern culture with the hero worship of the Starks. Most northerners were very pleased with their just and fair rulers, whose ideas and visions allowed them a better livelihood. Victories won by House Starks were reenacted by children, and their scholars were revered by many. This worked in unifying the land into a single culture group, as well as providing them with an in-group that they could rally behind and defend. All of the northern small folk have an identity as a northerner, while many of the other small folk or peasants in the world have no sense of identity and therefore care not for who they are ruled by. Underscore 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 2101 years AW, Crown Prince Osric the blacksmith would develop metal casting as a new technique of blacksmithing, allowing for greater production and much more fine and decorative works. 2131 years AW, Crown Prince Brandon the apprentice would develop a technique to forge steel. Then he had the children enchant the steel to make winter steel blades. The original crown of winter and ice was reforged out of this more durable and stronger material. The original items being placed in the Hall of Artifacts. While the North would attempt to keep the method hidden in the North, soon the secret began to make its way into the Westerlands. Not being able to keep this secret for much longer, House Stark began to sell the knowledge to gain funds. This knowledge of how to forge steel would make its way to Essos, where House Baelaris would modify this knowledge to create the legendary Valyrian steel. 2147 years AW, Second Andal Crusade had no success as they break against the walls of Wolf's Watch. 2374 years AW, First Bolton invasion had no success. While the Boltons supported the Greystoke Rebellion centuries ago, this was their first solo attempt at taking the North. 2379 years AW, Third Andal Crusade had minimal success due to weakened troops of the First Bolton invasion. They make ground through the Stony Shore, however, the combined forces of House Stark, Grey Wolf, and Ryswell repels them back. 2513 years AW, King Roose Bloodwolf Stark, after a decade of infiltration, steals the secrets of glass making from Myr using his wargs and more than 36 spies, allowing the North to produce glass works. He gifts this knowledge to House Grey Wolf as Winterfell has no sand to use nearby. This begins a bloody trade war between the Myr and the North that has yet to cease. 2590 years AW, House Grey Wolf using the sand from the Stony Shore to create great glassworks bring great wealth to their house. Myr and House Grey Wolf are in constant competition to produce more delicate and more beautiful works of art. This lowers the prices of glass slightly, however, it is not lowered greatly as the two areas learn about game theory. King Roose also puts a tariff upon Myrish glass, to stimulate and grow the Grey Wolf glass. 2668 years AW, King Artos the Clean Wolf Stark introduced the bathing house. It is said that King Artos stepped out onto the walls of the middle area of the Winter City and smelled the growing stink. The men from the middle area and outwards did not have enough money to bathe often, only being able to bathe once a month, with the poor having to wash in the nearby river. Due to the weather of the North, that was not often. Therefore, he chose to use the vast hot springs under Winterfell to make the bathing houses. All bathing houses in Winter City was owned by the Starks. The rich area had nice large bathing houses, allowing far more privacy and grandeur. But for the lower classes, the bathing houses were smaller and more compact. However, because of the cheap prices, the small folk would use the bathing house once a week, bringing a large amount of wealth to House Stark. 2798 years AW, Queen Hannah the Clever would spend vast amounts of money to build a dozen great glass gardens in Winterfell to produce more food for themselves and have another steady source of food in case of a siege. She would only build them in Winterfell to have more of their vassals be reliant upon House Stark come winter. 2810 years AW, House Redwyne, after marrying with many northern women, had slowly switching their ways back to the first men. Their wines brought them great wealth because it was popular among the wealthy southern lords. Whilst other lords can produce their own wines, it was not nearly as good as Arbor Gold. Seeing this untapped market, House Stark decided to make other alcoholic beverages. After many trials, they had made Stark Clear, a clear alcoholic beverage that would warm you when you drink it, and Nordic Ale, another cheap alcoholic beverage for the small folk. Unlike Arbor Red, the Stark Clear was made out of potatoes, which grew well in the north and had a massive kick, oftentimes making first-time drinkers choke at the burning feeling. It was a favorite among people who wanted to get drunk quickly and was popular among the richer small folk and magners of the north. House Stark also standardized the Nordic Ale, which was the cold drink, meant to please magners /lords, kings, and even the small folk during feasts. The cool taste of the Nordic Ale and the cheap costs, meant it was served in every major inn and castles. House Martell produces the best Dornish Red, once again funding their growth in power and strength in Dorne. House Black decided to make Black Gold, which was made out of kettle corn, and was extremely popular amongst very rich lords and magners. As corn did not grow in the north well and the brew had to be very closely monitored. They also discovered that their drink tasted the better the older it was. This applied to some extent to Arbor Gold, Dornish Red, and Stark Clear. A 75-year-old barrel of Black Gold was sold to House Lannister, House Stark and House Gardener for 6,000 gold wolves. House Gardener drank theirs foolishly, while House Lannister and House Stark saved theirs, realizing that the longer it was kept the more expensive it would become. House Stark also keeps 3 80-years-old casks of Arbor Red, 30 barrels of 60-years-old Dornish Red and 40 78-year-old casks of Stark Clear. Underscore 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 underscore. House Stark's navy could now match all of the other kingdoms combined, and their army was skilled, however, not as numerous as the Gardeners. The harsh seas of Skagos and the Iron Island bred skilled sailors. The harsh lands of the north bred strong tough men. However, they were only able to reach such a mark for their navy with the induction of the House Redwyne. House Gardener now forced to solely rely upon the Hightower navy. The First Tongue and the Common Tongue were the two main languages of Westeros. Because the First Tongue already had a form of easy writing, learning the Common Tongue brought no extra value. Only the Vale solely used the Common Tongue. All lords and magna of the other kingdom learned both. The small folk were divided, all members of the small folk of the north only knew the First Tongue, and the Vale only knew the Common Tongue, but the other kingdoms were very mixed and varied, with some places even forming bastardized versions of the two languages. This made ruling the south more difficult for many generations as they slowly took on the Common Tongue. Underscore 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 underscore. Valyria was still a new civilization compared to the other civilizations. They were only around 900 years old, compared to the nearly 3,000 years of the Kingdom of the North and the Giscari Empire, 2,000 years of the Kingdom of the Reach, Kingdom of the Stormlands, and the Principality of Rohan. They were only able to get this powerful this quickly through their dragons and magic. At the end of every sixth moon, the great dragon lords get together to discuss future plans. The 40 dragon lords were having the great assembly, and the discussion turned to Westeros, most importantly the Kingdom of the North. Please, no matter how powerful they are, do you truly believe that they can stop us? With all of us on our dragons, nothing can stop us. Nothing will stop us, yelled one of the Dragon Lord. Are you sure, Dragon Lord Vicarion? Because I hear they have giants and mammoths. Giants capable of wielding massive bows, shooting its massive spear like arrow tipped with well-forged steel, much greater lengths with much greater force. These arrows are supposed to be taller than an average man. An accurate unit of giants would be able to shoot down a dragon with ease. Each Winter King and his family member walking with direwolves the size of horses, wielding magic and fighting with the force of nature itself. They have winter steel which rumored to be as nearly as strong and durable as Valyrian steel. I hate to agree with Dragon Lord Baelaris, but the Kingdom of the North is nothing to scoff at. House Stark has ruled the North for 3,000 years now, which is far more than any of us could lay claim to. We cannot beat them currently. Not while fighting the Giscari Empire, said Dragon Lord Targaryen. Ha! The two youngest Dragon Lord thinks that they can order us around, yelled Dragon Lord Vicarion. Please refrain yourself, Dragon Lord Vicarion. You become a Dragon Lord a mere year earlier than them. House Baelaris has made more contributions to the freehold than you or your family has, with their creation of the Valyrian steel. Besides, they speak the truth. We are not ready to fight two of the world's most powerful kingdoms, especially since it appears that we will war the third most powerful soon enough, when we expand into Rohan. Dragon Lord Targaryen, Dragon Lord Baelaris, and I shall visit the north and see if we can secure a non-aggression pact with them, said Archon Dragon Lord Veltigar. All of the Dragon Lords nodded in agreement with Archon Dragon Lord Veltigar. Dragon Lord Vicarion seethed with rage and fury but could not do anything against Dragon Lord Veltigar, as they were the most powerful and influential of the Dragon Lord houses and the current Archon of the Freehold. King Biron Stark sat upon the Winter Throne when a Green Ranger burst into the Great Hall. One could tell their station and rank by his cloak and weapon. It was in the color of deep emerald green with a clasp in the shape of an direwolf carrying a longbow made of pure white wood, weirwood. He knelt in front of the throne and said, "Your Grace, we have spotted around 30 ships. Our intelligence suggests it is the Dragon Lords of House Targaryen, House Baelaris, and House Veltigar. They have 10 dragons with them." Alarmed King Biron quickly asked, "Where do they seem to be sailing to?" "White Harbor, Your Grace. I want you to gather most, if not all, Grey and Green Rangers and ride to White Harbor. Let the White Rangers, and the Ranger's apprentice take over the patrols." King Biron then turned to his son Prince Eddard, who sat upon the crowned prince's weirwood throne, and said, "Ned, I need you to take 5,000 men, 50 trained giants archers, and 30 mammoths to White Harbor and greet these Dragon Lords. If they are here for a friendly visit, send me a message within the moon, but if you fail to do so then I shall march the Northern Army." "I shall leave at first light, Father," said the crowned Prince Eddard as he got up to prepare for the journey. King Biron turned to the messenger and said, "Write a message to all of the Hymagnas and Magnas directly under House Stark. Tell them to prepare the army and be prepared to march to Winterfell if need be. Inform them of the Valyrians. Underscore 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 underscore. Dragon Lord Baelaris with Dragon Lord Veltigar and Dragon Lord Targaryen stood atop their relatively small ship, Sea Dragon, watching White Harbor come into their view. Dragon Lord Baelaris saw White Harbor and was surprised at its beauty. It wasn't as awe-inspiring as Valyria, which had scary-aching open towers made from fused rock with dragons often dotting the skies, but White Harbor had a more tranquil beauty. That wasn't saying that Newcastle, the keep of House Marndalee, wasn't impressive. It had grand whittle walls with impressive towers and he could feel it had rudimentary wards of protection on it. This surprised the Dragon Lords, as they had believed wards were to be a Valyrian creation, which was jealously guarded. These wards, however, merely amplified the strength of its walls, preventing decay, and was more subtle than their wards. House Baelaris was nowhere near the most powerful of the 40 Dragon Lord houses of Valyria, ranking perhaps in the top half. They did not have as many dragons as House Veltigar, who were rumored to have around 50 or more mature dragons, while his house only had 15. But what they lacked in dragons and numbers, they made it up by being the most gifted house in the area of magic. Their ability and connection to magic was one of the best. House Baelaris has already produced 3 great fire sage, and House Baelaris made the first Valyrian steel blade. Although ironically, Valyrian steel did not require any magic at all. It only required the magic of dragon fire. They were beaten by the magical wardic power of House Vicarion, however. This was only due to their willingness to sacrifice thousands and thousands of lives to beat House Baelaris. He looked up to see a huge ship being escorted by 10 other large ships. Atop the ship stood a tall man with broad shoulders who asked in a language, presumably the first tongue, "What are the Valyrian Dragon Lords doing this far north?" The man, after seeing blank and confused face of the Dragon Lords, the man switched to the common tongue and asked the question again. They were able to understand as the common tongue remained in Essos, even after the Valyrians captured and chased off many Andals. Dragon Lord Veltigar said, "We are not here to invade the north. We merely wanted to see the north and see if the rumors were true." "You have my word." "Very well, I am the Crown Prince Eddard Stark of House Stark. May I ask for yours?" "I am Archon Dragon Lord Veltigar, and the two men besides me are Dragon Lord Baelaris and Dragon Lord Targaryen. We just wish to visit Winterfell and Winter City. I was instructed by my father to lead you and your companions to Winterfell. I hope you don't mind the Green Rangers and the giants that will be escorting us. They are to make sure that your dragons don't wander off, kill our livestock, and burn our men. They will be put down should they attempt an attack." "That is perfectly acceptable." Underscore 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 underscore. Excerpt from the personal journal of Dragon Lord Aes Baelaris. So began our journey to the north. While the journey was long, far longer than what it would have taken to fly, we didn't want to threaten the northern Magners. While Archon Dragon Lord Veltigar and Dragon Lord Targaryen decided to stay distant from our new host, I made friends with the Crown Prince Eddard. He was very stark and blunt, very fitting I suppose. However, he was also very honorable and kind. One could instantly tell he loved the Kingdom of the North, and I could see why. Even with the population growth of the North, their kingdom was currently the biggest in the world, and there were still lots of empty and unclaimed land. The cold air was very clear and cut through your lungs, feeling incredibly fresh, unlike the stuffy humid lands of Valyria. The direwolf companion of Prince Eddard was one of the most majestic creatures I have ever had the pleasure of seeing. He was informed that his name was Winter. Winter was a pale white wolf with blue eyes. He was the size of a small horse or pony. Prince Eddard told me of the story of Queen Kira the Huntress, who found the direwolves in the lands beyond the wall in the land of always winter. Underscore 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 underscore. When I saw Winterfell and Winter City, I was in awe. It was as impressive as the castle and buildings of Valyria. What was more impressive was the fact that they had built most of it without the help of magic. He could of course sense the magic within the stone, but it wasn't as overwhelming as his keep in Valyria. Magic was strong around, and Winterfell could probably even resist dragon fire for a bit. It was far more powerful than the rudimentary wards on Newcastle. Magic was interwoven within the material, instead of coated like it was in Valyria. This interwoven nature of the magic made it feel far more natural, less off-putting, and more welcoming. What was strange, however, was the amount of magic woven in the material. The amount of magic that was flowing through the stone should have destroyed the material, yet the walls and keeps of Winterfell and Winter City held strong. This was part of the reason why the Valyrians chose to coat their walls instead of weaving it through, as no material could survive the amount of magic that coats the walls of Valyria. Winter City was also a very impressive sight. With a population of 40,000, one could see giants, men, and short little men, who I assumed was the children of the forest, mingling with each other. The city was patrolled by men wearing a grey cloak. Ned told me that they were the Grey Cloak City Guard, who guarded Winter City and Winterfell. He explained that there were practically no crimes committed within the city borders, because they were able to walk into animals and, as soon as a crime was committed, and locate the criminal's location and capture them. The city was organized 4 districts. Ned explained to me that this way, should they hold any tourneys or major events, it made containing them and minimizing damage easier because they were all in the inn's /visitation quarter. Surprisingly, there were no smell of shit and sweat, like there was in Old Town, but a rather pleasant smell of the forest and wood smoke. The inner yard had the Grey Cloaks training hard. They all looked to be decent swordsmen and archers. Nothing to scoff at, but not amazing. Their leaders seemed to be more impressive and had a very dangerous glint in their eyes as they watched our party. When they entered the throne room, I saw King Biran Stark sat upon an impressive throne of ice, which I was later informed to be known as Stygian ice. Upon his brow was the famous crown of swords, which was reforged with winter steel and with the crown of winter iron being given to the crown prince to wear at the age of 15. He looked as regal and kingly as any Valyrian, and our party could all feel the wave of magic rolling off of the throne itself. The throne was a strange piece of magical artifact. It was an anomaly. Magic was both woven through and around the throne, with a high intense amounts of sacrificial magic lacing through the object, enough for the throne to have cracked and blown apart 100 times over. However, it still remained and seemed to amplify the king's magic. The throne was clearly connected to the Stark bloodline and amplified their positive traits. It had other capabilities, however, due to the interwoven layered nature of its magic, it was impossible to tell its other more hidden functions. The only way to learn its other effects would be to sit upon the throne or break apart the wards, which would require immense magical power, and most likely the sacrifice of more than 5,000 slaves. Perhaps it is the throne, which allows the walls to contain more magic than it should be capable of. Underscore 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 underscore. All three dragon lords bowed their heads in respect, and King Biran asked, "Why are the dragon lords of Valyria here?" "We wished to visit the powerhouse of Westeros," replied Dragon Lord Targaryen. "Please, I wish not to play this game. Tell me the true reason of your visit." "Are the famous Stark bluntness." "Very well, we wished to start up trade between the North and Valyria, as well as ask you not to think of attacking Valyria. Transporting your giants, mammoths, and men will be logistic hell for you, not to mention the supplies." "It will be the same case for us," replied Dragon Lord Veltigar. "So a non-aggression pact?" "In short, yes. Although the trade is another important factor." "Very well, but I have a few demands. First, not a single one of my people, giant, man or children of the forest, will be taken by your slavers. I understand that Valyria works those slaves, the North does not. Should I hear one of my people being taken, I will take my revenge. Winter will come for the enemies of House Stark. We can agree to those terms." "Very well, my people will draw up a contract. You are welcome to stay as long as you wish, as long as you don't cause any trouble." "Thank you, Your Grace." Underscore 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 underscore. 3 moons later, the Valyrians left the north for the journey back home. House Targaryens and House Veltigar left exactly with what they thought they would, a new place to trade their goods and a non-aggression pact. But House Baelaris made a new friend and ally with House Stark. They made better deals with them, as well as making promises to keep in touch. House Stark would grow in wealth with new trade deals with Valyria, especially House Baelaris. Underscore 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 underscore. 2975 years AW, Fourth Andal Crusade, minimal success with the only Stark, a cousin to the king, ever killed in the crusade. The North swore vengeance and would receive it. 2977 years AW, Second Bolton invasion, had no success. 3028 years AW, Prince Cregan the Guildmaster formed a great many guilds in Winterfell. The Blacksmith Union, the Farmers' Gathering, the Mercenary Guild, the Company of the Rose, a Sellsword Company, Magic Association, and etc. to further the northern economy. 3125 years AW, Crown Prince Antioch the Faithslayer and a few select men and a Kotef, would sneak into Old Town and into the 1st September, where he would gut the High Septon the root and leave his entrail in a new weirdwood sapling, planted in the stairway up to the September. The sapling feed on the blood and magic of the first men and a child of the forest, to grow faster. House Stark would make use of the first wildfire ever created by the Alchemist Guild to blow up the entire September. He would leave a message saying, "The North remembers that your religion killed a Stark and winter came for the High Septon in retaliation." This would start saying that the North remembers. 3208 years AW, another building project of the North was planned by House Stark to attempt to greatly increase their infrastructure, counteracting the negative effects of having such vast and frigid lands. White Harbor and Whitehall is connected to Winterfell through the White Knife. As such, House Stark begins this 100-year plan, with the construction of river ports, river transport systems, and roads. House Stark had to first connect their greatest source of trade with Essos to their inland capital, to maintain a growth in the capital as well. After 8 years, this task was completed and the river system brings more trade to Winterfell and Wintercity due to the reduction in costs. House Stark then contacts House Baelorys and offers 1,000,000 golden wolves for their assistance in the construction of the roads system in the north. After much negotiation, House Stark and House Baelorys agrees to only work together in building the road from Winterfell to Wolf's Watch. After 6 years, a great amount of funding the Wolf's Road is completed. House Stark, having learned much from the Valyrian road making, begins to merge the Valyrian road designs with the Yetish Great Stone Road designs to find a medium between the two. Whilst not as good as the Valyrian roads, it was certainly as good as the Great Stone Roads and did not require dragon fire. Whitehall, Newcastle were all connected to Wolf's Road over the course of 4 years. House Stark would then embark upon the connecting Winterfell to Castle Black. This would be the longest undertaking committed by House Stark other than the construction of the wall. 14 years would be spent in the construction of the Black Road. However, an unforeseen problem arose from the construction of the two main roads. Banditry had greatly increased in the north, exploiting the increasing infrastructure. This led to the foundation of the Northern Standing Army. A trained force of 10,000 men were tasked to defend the north. 3 Magna Commanders were elected to command the force together. Each Magna Commander had 3 commanders under their command and each commander had 10 captains under their command. The commanders and captains could be both small folk, heir of Magnas, and even bastards. This standing army would grow to 20,000 men as the population of the north increased. This greatly lowered banditry in the north and also allowed small folk to make a little bit of money and the heirs to earn battle experience. More northern roads was created over the next 5,000 years, connecting all of the Hymagna's castles to Winterfell. However, the other roads were not built purely out of the House Stark's treasury. They would be a joint program between the two houses to connect their castles with roads. This infrastructure allowed trade to easily flow to Winterfell and Wintercity, as well as allowing the northern armies to reach their destination faster. All of the northern roads lead to Winterfell, creating the saying, "All roads lead to Winterfell." 3323 years AW, as an answer to the newly formed and growing Order of the Maestus and their attempts at infiltrating the north and the legendary Great Library of Winterfell. House Stark, specifically Prince Euron the High Collar, created their own order, the Scholarly Order. Any northerner who was smart enough or show potential would be allowed to join the order, whether they be a commoner or a highborn. All highborns who join the order would need to give up their claims and lands. A massive keep was built for the order by House Stark, which would later known as the Winterfell University. They would be charged with being the guardians of the Great Library of the Winterfell and tasked with discovering new knowledge and creating inventions. Prince Euron would become the first Grand Collar in the order, with his twin Princess Lyanna joining him for the same rank. The lowest rank was an apprentice scholar. These apprentices studied basic and general knowledge in all fields for an average of 4 years in a classroom. Should they show potential, however, they would be recruited as a direct apprentice of a scholar, a high collar, or in one rare case a great collar. When they are deemed fit, they take a difficult test, testing their theoretical and practical knowledge. Should they pass, they are given the title scholar. After earning this title, they must begin to specialize within fields. An average scholar becomes adept around 2 and minor in another 3. They must write a modified thesis, a thesis based upon a full thesis, to become a high collar. High collars were men that had proven their knowledge by writing an entire modified thesis, found 20 theoretical errors and mistakes within separate books, or served a town faithfully for 3 years. They serve minor lords and minor keeps. Then there were great collars, who either wrote a new original thesis, 3 modified thesis, or making a new invention which would help the north. All great collars must be masters of at least 4 fields. They serve powerful magnas and hymagnas or teach classes to the scholars and high collars in Winterfell University. The highest rank was Grand Collar. A Grand Collar held the position for life or until they have become physically or mentally unable. There was a major discussion which took place, between all of the top Great Collars and the remaining Grand Collars to decide who was worthy enough to become a Grand Collar. They can only be 3 Grand Collars at a time. One of the Grand Collars must serve at court in Winterfell, while the other 2 lead the order. They had to be masters of at least 5 fields with at least 2 original theses. The Grand Collar of Winterfell would become a great advisor and tutor to House Stark. Most of the High Collars were better than the Maester of the South. The Great Library was bigger, grander, and contained a greater quantity and quality of books as the North was leading in innovation as well as amount of discoveries. Underscore 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 3967 years AW. The trade between North and Valyria is almost exclusively between the North and House Baelaris, granting them great wealth and power to compensate for their lack of dragons compared to the other 40 Valyrian great houses, allowing them to stay in power and grow. They lead the neutral faction between the 2 opposing factions of the 40 Dragon Lords, only focusing on growing their wealth and power. 4286 years AW, 5th Andal Crusade, had no success and once again broke against the walls of Wolf's Watch. 4394 years AW, 3rd Bolton invasion, minor success in slaying House Locke and taking their castle. The combined forces of Stark, White Estoc, and Marndaily forces the Bolton forces back out of the north. The Blood Company have mastered the guerrilla warfare tactics and uses them with great efficiency against a bigger army. After their 3 campaigns in the north, they have begun to gain an adept knowledge on combat in a snowy terrain, and due to their time in Essos they learn how to fight in both plains and hills. This experience allows them to grow into one of the biggest sellsword companies in the world. 4523 years AW, Prince Braedon the Clockmaker creates the first sundial to keep track of time. He ordered the building of the massive sundial in Winterfell. This leads to a greater organization and perception of time. 4869 years AW, to celebrate a friendship of 2000 years House Baelaris grants a Valyrian great sword ice, an exact replica of the ancestral blade of House Stark as a token of friendship. This would make House Stark one of the few houses in Westeros to own a Valyrian greatsword. With House Baelaris' permission, the sword is woven with Children of the Forest's magic to make stronger, like winter steel, winter iron, and celestial bronze, creating the very first Valyrian winter steel. House Stark would in turn allow any member of House Baelaris access to the Great Library of Winterfell, the only non-northern house to ever receive such a privilege. House Stark even denied House Lannister and the Order of the Maestus access, even though House Lannister offered 1,000,000 golden wolves in exchange. House Lannister would go on to offer that small mountain of gold to the Valyrians for the Valyrian greatsword Brightraw. Queen Dana the Sea Rose would marry Aegar Baelaris and design Gallias and the Great Galliasses to continue the northern domination of the sea. The Ironborn culture has mostly been assimilated with the northern culture. 5023 years AW, Prince Thorin the Stargazer was the first to study the field of astronomy, creating the very first few maps of the stars, naming the brightest star, the Northern Rose. To better see the stars, he would commission a few engineers within the north to design the world's first telescope. He would gift this idea to his friend of House Grey Wolf, as glassmaking was already their forte. Many captains would buy their own telescopes from House Grey Wolf, earning them more money. He would then order the greatest observatory be built in the tallest mountain in the north, so House Peevra gained a wonder of man to their name and castle. 5173 years AW, Crown Prince Hojan the astronomer Stark would discover and name all of the constellations visible in the northern hemisphere, such as the Giant, Direwolf, or Kraken. He would work with many of the greatest minds in the north to discover many interesting things. He would be the first to captain the northern caravel and sail the ocean without the guidance of the shore. His friend Magna Beltasarthan would discover that the northern rose would always point towards the north and create the first compass in the world. 5343 years AW, Prince Brandon the Foolish, a fourth-born cousin of the king, would lead a part of the Western Navy across the Sunset Sea in hopes of discovering a new continent for the North to settle upon. He disappears with the navy, never to be seen again. 5868 years AW, Prince Garin's eldest daughter was married to the Crown Prince of the North, as House Starks believe in blood talent, breed power and talent into the Stark bloodline, with Prince Garin being the most powerful water mage in history. 5872 years AW, the Rhoynish lost the Rhoynish Wars, left the great river Rhone with Queen Nymeria and her 1,000 ships. It is said that the war between the Valyrians and the Rhoynish was one of the greatest wars in the history of the known world. The final battle was named the Battle of Fire and Water, as the Dragon Riders of Valyria and the Water Mags of Rhone fought. The elements themselves were attacking each other. The Water Mags would use the Rhone to block and attack the dragons. It was a long hard drawn out fight, but with the might of Valyria and their storm of 100 dragons, destroyed all of Prince Garin the great forces. Most of the Rhoynish fled to Dorne and married into the Martells, allowing the Martell to finally conquer all of Dorne. Queen Nymeria would sail her 1,000 ships filled to the brim with Rhoynar to flee the Valyrian conquest, after the 500-year war. They would land in Dorne, where Queen Nymeria would seduce and marry Mors Martell. After earning a home for themselves, Queen Nymeria would burn 900 of the 1,000 ships so that no Rhoynar would have the opportunity to change their minds. The Rhoynish water magic allowed for the discovery and creation of many oases to help the Martells grow stronger. Queen Nymeria would then go on to conquer the Euronwoods, one of the three kings of Dorne. With the combined forces of the Euronwoods, Martell, and Rhoynar, House Dane, arguably once strongest Dornish house due to their friendship with House Stark, fell and bent the knee. Dorne soon as powerful as the other kingdoms. The water mags of Rhoynar allowed oases to be found and new settlements to be made. The Rhoynar also brought camels with them, allowing them to traverse the Dornish desert with greater ease. With these new findings and additions, Dorne would become more powerful than they were. However, a lot if not most of the water mage's knowledge was lost in the destruction of the great city-states of Rohan. The Valyrian freehold made sure to destroy the city-states as much as possible to ensure such a threat never rises again. Rohan had killed 50 dragons in the war, which was more than the Giscari did in the 1,000-year war. The art of the water mags would be lost by the end of the 100th year of the Rhoyish landing, as many are hunted by the Andal zealots. The Great Purge leads to the water mags to go into hiding or be killed off. As more and more water mags goes into hiding, less and less of the knowledge is passed on, and soon all of the water mags were lost. The burning of the Thousand Fleet had assured the newly assimilated Andal culture to assimilate to the Rhoynish culture, leading to a very interesting middle ground, also limited the Dornish navy size to 150 ships. Due to the lack of wood in Dorne, most of their fleet to combat the pirates of the Stepstones were from the north. 5973 years AW, 6th Andal Crusade happened simultaneously with the 4th Bolton invasion. Both had some success, as the boy King Hojan was not a skilled military commander, especially at the age of 8. However, after appointing Hymagna Umber as his general and commander of his forces, they are repelled. 6013 years AW, worried about the growing strength of the Valyrians and lack of enemies they have to fight, Prince Brandon the Explorer and Princess Lyra the Seawolf set off on a quest to Croyan. They would sneak 36 northern ships up through Saway to the greatest Rhoynish city, with the help of House Baelaris. Croyan is said to be the least destroyed, as the last Rhoynish Prince Garin the Great, whilst in his golden cage being mocked by 20 Dragon Lord conquerors, at night called upon Mother Rowan to drag all 20 dragons and Dragon Lords down into the river, drowning them. It is said that Prince Garin, angered by his failure and causing the death of 250,000 soldiers, then raised the fogs which hid Croyan from the Valyrian dragons to protect his home. The Valyrians, scared to meet the same fate as the 20 Dragon Lords, decided to just abandon Croyan. It is said that Mother Rowan created grayscales to punish the Valyrians, as the disease became widespread as the armies of the Valyrians went back home. The Valyrians solved the problem by burning and sacrificing all of the infected men. The 36 ships docked at the surprisingly well-preserved city. Croyan, nicknamed the Festival City, was once the richest and most splendid of the cities along the Rhone. It contained the colossal Palace of Love, a magnificent fastness. The crew see graceful buttresses, delicate arches, fluted columns, terraces and bowers. The palace's towers and fallen stones are covered in thick, grey moss and black vines. It was roughly the same size as Winterfell but 100 times more beautiful. They would fight more than 100 maddened stone men. The northerners wearing long clothing and could avoid having skin-to-skin contact with them, and through the use of spears and shields walls, were able to get through to the Palace of Love. It was there they would find the throne room, where the skeletal figure, presumed to be Prince Garin, sat. Prince Garin recorded his life in a journal which would be found next to his body. The book and crown would be taken with the two Stark siblings. They would go on to raid the great library of the Palace of Love. Croyan, being next to River Roine, was always very wet. To compensate for this, the Rhoynish water mages would ward the library to keep it dry. This meant the books were relatively well kept, with most of the books being in good conditions. Due to the age of the wards, however, as soon as they stepped through the doors, the ward collapsed. Meaning the Palace of Love would soon face greater decay and collapse. All of the gold, books, and other valuable items were looted. One of the most important finds was the book on grayscale. The book detailed many methods to avoid grayscale, such as burning all clothing contaminated by grayscale, as it could carry the disease, using fire to burn prevent more spreading, and the use of water magic to cut the grayscale off of the skin. Water magic works the best as the water is constantly changing. However, a similar process could be completed with knives, as long as the knives are constantly cleaned. A dozen of sketches and paintings were drawn of Croyan, to capture the beautiful city before it fell into ruin. Prince Brandon, after reading about the traditional burial methods of the Rhoynish, put Prince Garin's body wrapped in a blanket, was put on a boat and pushed out into the Rhoyne. The boat with man-made holes, causing it to slowly sink into the river, allowing Prince Garin to finally find rest with Mother Rhoyne. The two siblings would return to the north as heroes, having brought great wealth and knowledge to Winterfell. The North would immediately study the notes of the Rhoynish war masters and would be disappointed to find their fighting tactics mostly revolved around the legendary water mags of Rhoyne. However, the history and culture of Rhoyne was preserved in the North and Dorne. House Stark, after not finding any helpful tactics from the Rhoynish, would double their efforts to find the legendary chronicles of Hizdahr az Ossarku using the Kingsman. He was a commander of the old Empire of Gis, who in the Fifth Giscleri War was the only commander able to kill 4 dragons. House Lannister, House Gardener, and House Arryn would all launch their own expeditions. House Gardener chose to visit Saur, as it was the safest. However, Saur was found to be in complete ruins after the Valyrians destroyed it. Disappointed, they would launch a second expedition to Nysar. Whilst they found slightly more success there, most of the valuable goods from Nysar was taken to Dorne. House Arryn visit Arnoi. Whilst parts of its famous green marble walls were still standing, there was not much goods to be found as the dragon flames destroyed the city and palace. Goyen and Drowi would be visited by House Lannister, the city also in ruins, but many of its canal bridges were still standing. This allowed House Lannister to find some information of Rhoyne and its beautiful architecture. These expeditions would bring back a small sample of grayscales, which is why people in Westeros could get the disease, even though it is extremely rare. 6139 years AW, King Carlon the Patron would fund many of the great architectural buildings and artworks. Many parts of Queen's Cassana's mathematics would be figured out during this period, leading to the extensive usage of the Stark theorem. The architecture of the Rhoyne, North, and Valyria would find a very beautiful mixture within Winterfell, creating a new architectural style. Winterfell would receive many of the classic Rhoynish architecture of graceful buttresses, delicate arches, fluted columns, terraces and bowers. They received the tall circular architecture of the Valyrians in combination of the sharp slanted roofs to allow no snow build-up, the gargoyles' watchers, grey granite, and hundred of fluttering banners of House Stark, from the northern architecture. Many direwolves and Stark Kings statues popped up around Winterfell. The first amphitheatre based upon Rhoynish architecture was built to hold plays, magicians' acts, animal shows, musical artists and many others. The Street of the Great Kings were created to depict the best kings of the north through very realistic sculptures. It leads straight to the Great Gate, which connected to the Black Road and Wolf's Road. The sculpture were famous for looking unbelievably real. The very inner walls of Winterfell received a very artistic upgrade that by no means affected the strength and integrity of the walls. No castle in Westeros could compare to Winterfell's beauty and strength. Music and art would flourish in the north, leading to Wintercity and Winterfell to be the most beautiful place in the world, comparable only to the city Valyria. Musical devices were created like the drum, bagpipe, and harp. The citadel, not willing to be outdone by the north again, creates the Lute. Winterfell would become one of the only examples of northern extravagance. However, due to its importance, history, and House Stark's great economic strategies, no northerners had any complaints. 6,214 years AW, since King Antioch the Faithslayer, Old Town would not house the High Septon for 3,000 years. They were finally brought back after House Hightower spent thousands of gold wolves in building the Starry September. House Hightower and other reach houses spent 2,000 years to cut down all of the weirwood trees, which kept mysteriously popping up. 6,423 years AW, King Cregan Stark II formed the Order of the Vexator. They were spear and knife-wielding fighters. Each member was extremely skilled, but their main strength was their horses. King Cregan a group of his men to kill a small khalasar and bring their horses. The best of the best were bred to be the fastest and have the strongest endurance. House Ryswell, who had a history of horse breeding, exclusively bred horses for this order. Order of the Vexator's horses were bred to focus on speed and endurance instead of strength and size. They were the special cavalry unit that would be sent in to harass army and disappear by the time the main fighting force was to attack. They were meant to slow down an attacking army. They were trained to fight all types of land fighters, from knights to cavalry, to normal foot soldiers. 6,692 years AW, King John the Mechanic would crack a part of Cassana's notes and design the world's first crossbows and scorpions. The walls of Winterfell and Wolf's Watch were lined with these war machines in the case of an aerial or siege weapon attack. A couple attacks from Scorpion's blasts would have siege weapons breaking down, unlike the wave of arrows that were required. All other major castles would soon be lined with Scorpions, earning House Stark a great deal of money. 6,808 years AW, the seventh and final Andal Crusade happened, with no success. They were once again repelled by the Great Walls of Wolf's Watch. With the addition of the Scorpions and other war machines and the four Andal Crusade broken by Wolf's Watch has become officially as impossible to take as the Bloody Gate of the Vale. The Andal Crusades allowed the North to observe all of the weaknesses within its defenses and completely correct all of them. 7,051 years AW, House Stark celebrates their 7,000-year rule over the Dominion of the North. House Stark is considered to be nearly godly figures in the North due to their extremely long rule and brilliant legendary members. Many of the roads are completed by this time, connecting all High Magna castles and towns to Winterfell. There are three major cities in the North. Wintercity, with a population of 450,000 people, is the biggest city in the north. White Harbor follows with a population of 250,000 people, then Guard City with a population of 180,000 people. Whitetown, Greytown, Pike fall just below the city population of 50,000 and has 45,000, 40,000, and 35,000 respectively. The North has a population of 7 million men, 35,000 giants, and 25,000 children of the forest. Without the influx of giants and the first men tribes beyond the wall, the North would have most likely never grown beyond 4 million men. Valyria had conquered almost the entirety of Western Essos, developing their small outposts into full-flesh colonies, such as Tioche, Lys, Myr and many others. Dragon Lord Targaryen had settled on Dragonstone, the furthest freehold outpost. The Valyrian freehold was the biggest empire in the world, surpassing the Kingdom of the North with the assimilation of the Rhoynish city-states and their lands. Their technological prowess was matched only by the Golden Empire of Yti and the North, their armies vast and undefeated, and magical prowess only matched by the Kingdom of the North and the mysterious lands of Ashai. Valyria had beaten the supposedly unbeatable lockstep legions of the Giscleri Empire, although it was only through the excessive use of dragons as well the legendary water mags of Rohan. The Andals were easily scared off and they were now destroying the Dothraki hordes, tall men, etc. This allowed them access to the entirety of the Western Essos and large amounts of resources. All of the 40 Dragon Lords had the main family in the city of Valyria. The city of Valyria is located southeast of the Three Daughters on the Valyrian Peninsula, a large peninsula extending southwards into the Summer Sea. Valyria was connected by dragon roads to surrounding cities, such as Tyria. Topless tower built to rise high through magic and merged stone, sword reaching for the clouds with many stone sphinxes guarded the city. The smooth stones were accomplished by melting the stones together, making it a seamless attachment. The Valyrian Peninsula was the center of the Valyrian freehold and Valyria was its beating heart. The Valyrians seemed unstoppable and were set to conquer the rest of Essos, before the unimaginable doom of Valyria. Underscore 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 underscore. King Eddard Stark, the 18th of his name, was sitting upon his throne worried, as he had not heard from his old friend Dragonlord Jaehaerys Baelaris, or as he called him Jay. It has been 3 moons since he last heard from him. It would take around a single moon for the messenger raven to reach Valyria at most, so he was dreading what this delay might mean. He met Jay, when he left the north to explore the Plantios as a young child. At first, he thought he would be satisfied by visiting the 8 kingdoms of Westeros, but he was wrong, as everywhere but Dorne was boring and hostile. So he set sail to Valyria to meet House Baelaris, the old ally of House Stark. It was there that he met Jaehaerys. They had instantly become close friends, bonding over their immense burden of their house's great history and responsibilities. They practiced their swordplay, studied politics, finance, and practically everything else together, each finding a brother they had always wanted in the other. King Eddard had stayed with House Baelaris in Valyria for 4 years, before journeying back to the north, and they have kept in contact ever since, messaging each other practically every month. His thoughts were interrupted when a Green Ranger ran inside the Great Hall. He knelt and said, "Your Grace, I bring terrible news, Valyria. It has fallen. Nobody knows how it happened. Some say the 14 massive volcanoes erupted at the same time, causing the land split apart. Some say that the Dragon Lords attacked each other, while others say that a ritual went wrong. The Kingsmen heard rumors of this, so we went to investigate, only to discover it to be true. I am sorry, Your Grace, I know you had close Valyrian friends." King Eddard's face turned stony. There were 2 types of Starks. The wolf-blooded Starks, who are quick to anger, gaining strength, speed, and great reflexes in exchange for a clouded mind. The other were the Winter Starks. Their anger is like a frozen blizzard. It grants them a heightened intelligence due to the powerful motivation. It allowed them to deliver justice and revenge, allowing them to wait for the perfect moment to destroy everything in their path systematically. Eddard Stark was the latter and have never had an explosive anger or sadness. All grief or anger instantly froze inside him, leaving him solemn. Cold anger had its uses, just as hot rage had its own uses. He quietly but commandingly said, "Bring me the Hyzir." Underscore 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 underscore. Soon a child of the forest came through to the great hall, walked forth and said, "Your Grace, you asked for me. Can you explain the doom of Valyria to me? It sounds eerily similar to how you children destroyed the Arm of Dawn. Is there any chance for them to have survived?" "It does, Your Grace, but the magical signature was vastly different. I personally felt the souls of the sacrificed, finally being able to escape, so based on that I have come to a conclusion. What I believe happened, Your Grace, was that the 14 volcanoes exploded at once. Once, the destructive heat and lava reached the castles and forts of Valyria. The wards and the volcanoes ended up having a major battle, which ended with a massive magical backlash supported by the tortured madness of the sacrificed, that broke and sunk the Valyrian Peninsula. Most wards would break before that could ever happen, but all houses except House Baelaris practiced incredible amounts of human sacrifice. We had similarly practiced the art before the long night, till it was deemed to be too barbaric. It made the magic stronger, especially if one sacrificed a magically strong person. But for there to be any noticeable effect with a non-magically gifted person, you have to sacrifice thousands of lives. The Valyrians didn't care about such a vile act and sacrificed thousands and thousands of non-magically gifted for each fort, tower, and castle. This caused the runes to not collapse the instant the lava touched it, allowing the ensuing battle between magic and nature. No matter how powerful magic is, it cannot stop nature. So when the magic broke, it most likely released a powerful magical backlash, which was compounded every time it reached and broke a new ward, creating a magical backlash powerful enough to split and sink lands. Not only that, but this magic is tainted with the souls of the sacrificed. That means that the magical backlash released all of the tortured souls into the surrounding area, cursing it. A normal man will not be able to survive, however, a magically gifted might have a chance to make it out. So they were killed by their own stupidity and ruthlessness. Well, not all, your grace. I heard the Targaryens took their 15 dragons to Dragonstone and moved their entire family there, after one of their members dreamed about the doom, said a random trader who was at the Great Hall. I heard the Veltigars moved a part of their family and dragons to Volantis after the Targaryen warning, yelled another trader. Thank you all for your information, said King Eddard as he stood up from his throne. As he made his way to leave the hall, he said, please clear the room, I shall hold no more meeting for today. Underscore 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 underscore. King Eddard sat in front of the ancient weirwood tree in the Godswood of Winterfell. His direwolf, Night, was pure black in color with clear blue eyes. It is said that this weirwood tree is one of the oldest in the known world. The first men and children had only found one other older weirwood tree, and it was far in the land of always winter. There was talk between the children, trying to find of ways to bring it further south to Wolfswood near Winterfell, where the children of the forest built their own city. It was very well warded, and unless in dire need, no man or giant would be able to find it. Only when escorted by a child of the forest, would a person not in danger be able to find the city. The few men who visited the city say that it is amazing, with houses that is merged with trees. Animals that would stay with them, without warging or domestication. It is said that there are massive trees, taller than towers of some castles. He now wished that he was back there, as there is no place in the world as peaceful. Only in the ancient Godswood of Winterfell, where he could feel all the old gods' presence, was it remotely close. It has been a moon since he heard about the doom of Valyria, and he was still mourning for his fallen friend and the loss of a close ally. He sat there sharpening and cleaning ice, over and over again, even though the blade needed no sharpening. As he sat there collecting his thoughts, a guard came into the forest and said, Your Grace, you will want to see this. What is it? There is a host coming, with Valyrian features. King Eddard shot up, quickly sheathed ice, and ran to the inner walls of Winterfell. He jumped on the nearest horse and rode out. Hastily, 10 guards quickly followed, with the Green Ranger jumping on his specially bred horse to follow. When King Eddard neared the host of 5,000 men and women, he stopped and asked, Who are you? State your business. It's me, old friend, said a heavily bandaged man, with flowing silver hair, riding forward. King Eddard, shocked, said, Jay, you are alive. Yes, his barely audible voice was cut off with a hacking cough. These people here and I were able to escape the dew, said Jay as he nearly fell out of his horse, not being able to properly stay on it because of all his injuries. Just hang on, friend, I shall get you help, said King Eddard. He then turned to escort guards, and said, Get more men, help me escort them to the infirmary. When King Eddard turned back around, he saw Jay dropping off of his horse with one of his men barely catching him. Underscore 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 underscore. Dragon Lord Jaehaerys Baelaris, 6th of his name, awoke in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar location. He looked around and said, Wah. He was unable to finish as his voice cracked due to his raw, parched throat. Luckily, the Grand Collar heard the noise and saw that his patient had awoken. He quickly got up and brought him a glass of water. After watching Dragon Lord Jaehaerys drink all the water slowly, the Grand Collar asked, How are you feeling? I have felt better. I shall go inform King Eddard. He asked me to inform him once you awoke, and the Grand Collar left. Left alone, Jaehaerys looked around to see that he was in the infirmary. Still feeling parched, he reached for more water. After 3 minutes of waiting, the Grand Collar returned, but this time with Ned. Ned, said Jaehaerys. Jay. Thank the old gods, you are alive. I was worried. When I heard of the doom of Valyria and no rumor of your family's survival, I assumed you were dead. Thank the gods you came to Winterfell. Can you tell me what happened? Before I do, are all the small folk being treated? Of course. I have personally made sure of it. I have been told that they will all make a full recovery. Then sit down, because it is a long story. After taking another gulp of water, Jaehaerys began his story. When the 14 volcanoes erupted at the same time, I knew what the Targaryens foretold and my dreams warned me of were true. You see, the Targaryens, specifically Daenerys the Dreamer, predicted the doom a century ago and they moved their entire family to Dragonstone. Every dragon owned by House Targaryen, around 15, and wealth was moved to Dragonstone. The Veltigars moved a tenth of their family to Volantis, so roughly 10 dragons, although they were the old or the newborn, and 5 family members. The second-born son, 2 sister wives, and 2 children. No other families moved away from Valyria. In fact, we mocked the Targaryens for their foolishness. In leaving Valyria, they had left behind their political power and status. My family believed ourselves to be the most magically powerful, and because we didn't have the dream, that meant that it wasn't going to happen. So our family also decided not to move. Wait, I thought your family was the most powerful in magic. We are generally. Our average magic power is higher than any other family, however, that doesn't mean that there cannot be another person more powerful than us. My family grew arrogant, because we were constantly called the most magically powerful of the Dragon Lords. Then hours before the doom, I had a dragon dream as well. It was as exactly as the same as the Targaryens described to us. I immediately knew the doom was coming, so I took my family and the nearby small folk into high up our castle, where we would be protected from the heat and lava. My dragon was dragged indoors, but the others were near the 14 flames, and they could erupt at any moment, so had to be abandoned. I was hoping that it would provide enough protections for them. My daughter refused to leave my side whilst I was helping the small folk into my castle. She is very magically powerful and only I can hold her uncontrolled lashes of magic. So when the 14 flames exploded, the smoke, lava, heat, and ash washed over my castle before we could properly close the gates. I had to protect my daughter, so I cast a rudimentary ward of protection on her, said Jaehaerys with blank eyes. Knowing it wasn't safe for him to go in shock, King Eddard broke him from his stupor by asking, "And you don't know how Valyrian wards work? For a rune of protection to work, the damage that the object that is being protected might receive has to go somewhere. Normally, you do it to something like a mountain or the ocean, but I didn't have time to put the pair on either one. So the solution was to put it on myself. I took all the injuries that she was supposed to get, the burns, the cuts. Solar took the brunt of the attack though, and with his last strength he closed the gates for us and blocked the ash. He died a second later, looking into my eyes. Even though we were relatively safe in my castle as long as no molten rock hits us, I knew it wasn't sustainable. I saved around 7,000 men, at the cost of 65,000. My fort was somewhat safe against the lava, it's made with dragon fire. Nowhere near as hot as lava, but it lasted long enough before melting, giving the lava time to cool. It was only through pure luck that a piece of debris didn't hit my castle. I was able to save 48 Valyrian steel swords and weapons, 23 sets of Valyrian steel armor, 200 chests filled with books from our library and the other libraries that we looted, and 300 chests filled with gold and other valuable gems. I would give it all to bring back the dead, said Jaehaerys, shuddering. You say you saved 7,000, but only 5,000 of them were with you. What happened? I waited for a month, making sure all the magical backlash from the destruction of the wards of the other houses' forts and castles was finished. Normally, I would be able to sense it, but because of the unprecedented magical backlash, my senses were overcharged. There was so much poisonous magic in the air. When we left the fort, we made our way to the closest harbor only to find it broken in many places, with more than half of it sunken underwater. We could see a few boats, but they were quite far away. So we had to go to the other harbor hoping that it hadn't broken off or sunken into the ocean with the boats. Jaehaerys stopped to gather his thoughts. Before continuing, we found the harbor still attached, but all the boats had drifted away or sunken. So I broke off the men into groups. Few were sent to get the boats, a group to look for more survivors, and another group to look at the other forts for more resources, said Jaehaerys. He drank another glass of water before continuing. We looked at all of the unbroken parts of the forts and even dug around the rubble. Most of the books are from my family's library. Books are not the most durable object, so we were not able to find many. Half the weapons and armor are my family's as well, seeing as how most of the weapons and armor was light enough to be thrown into the ocean when the land sank or buried under the lava. That is what I am presuming happened to most of the other Valyrian steel. My house had a lot of gems, and while tons was lost, there were still enough to fill those chests. Most of Valyria is in rubble as the magical backlash blew apart the walls and stones. Although we found a few suspiciously standing and closed off to the world, I worry about the reasoning for the fort's survival. We had to stay there for a month, getting the ship ready for the ocean and preparing resources. We made the mistake of drinking from the streams and lakes nearby. Whether it be all the deaths, volcanic eruptions, or the magical backlash, the waters of Valyria is now poisoned. Anyone who drank it, slowly went mad, got grayscales, or simply just died. By the time we figured out it was the water, roughly 2,000 people died. The one blessing in that horrible event, was the fact that the water we saved and the food we collected, was then enough for us to set sail and leave, practically immediately. The last blessing given to us, by the gods, were the fact that we didn't have to fight any Krakens on our way out. I am sorry, Jay, for making you have to go through that again. No. I deserve every bit of the pain. We put these people through this, us dragon lords. And now Valyria has fallen and my family will surely die out. My friend, you can't think this way. You have to continue fighting. For what? I have no home, I have lost my wealth, my power, my dragons, my family, and my people. After this ordeal, I doubt I would be able to have a child. Without the dragons, I can't even carve out a new home. Silence. You do have your family. You have a young daughter, who needs her father right now. Even if you can't have a new child, your family line, legacy, and blood will live through her. For your home, you can stay here. I will give you the protection of the North. You will not need wealth while staying with us. Do you not think that your family will want you to continue living? What about the 5,000 lives you saved? What about them? Do you not think they are extremely grateful to you for saving their lives? You did what neither the Targaryens nor the Veltigars did, even though they had more dragons and more power. You saved the small folk of Valyria, men that you did not need to save, and for that they will be extremely grateful. You are the sole reason why the culture of Valyria might not die out, said King Eddard. Before continuing with a softer voice he said, look my friend. You can give up now and kill yourself. I swear to you that your daughter will have a home here. But the way I see it, just for that little girl, the little girl that you took all the burns and cuts for, you have a life worth living. Please get some more rest and please think on what I said, my friend. Underscore 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 underscore. Jaehaerys stood with his shoulders firmly back, hair combed and tied back in perfection, and wearing formal clothing. He was walking Shrey towards the ancient weirwood tree in Winterfell's Godswood, before stepping away. Shrey was looking simply perfect, the Valyrian silver hair shining in the sunlight contrasting with a light red and gold flowing dress. To combat the cold and for tradition she was also wearing a heavy cloak of gold and red with a dragon symbol, the sigil of the Valyrian freehold, woven into it. Her beautiful red and gold dress was paired jewelry made from the gems he brought from Valyria and juxtaposed beautifully with a light dusting of snow which covered Winterfell. The hot spring pools near the weirwood tree was sending steam into the air, making the area look even more beautiful. Crown Prince Jameson Stark, second of his name, was already there waiting for her. The crown of the crowned prince atop his head, with a man in the background holding the great sword Titan's Bite. His dark, nearly black, brown hair was pulled back into a small bun, his jawline accented by a light beard. The prince was a handsome man, with the typical Stark looks, his piercing storm grey eyes only looking at Shrey. He was dressed in a fine black leather doublet with white stitching of direwolves. He was clearly dressed in expensive clothes, however, it was not overly extravagant. Jaehaerys couldn't help but think about the past decade and how much had happened. underscore 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 underscore. Jaehaerys, after hearing his friend's words, decided to not give up on his life. He began by buying out an entire street of Winter City with his 100 chest full of gold and gems. It ran from the rich inner circle near Winterfell, all the way to the very outer circle where the poorest dwelled. This street was then gifted to the Valyrians that had escaped the doom with them. The gifted and skilled were brought closer to Winterfell, ranging from Valyrian smiths who could rework Valyrian steel and knew how to craft gorgeous pieces of jewelry, armor, and weapons, and normal farmers. He named this zone, Little Valyria, and the main street which ran down the zone, Shrey's Street. Titan's Bite, the ancestral blade of House Baelaris, was reforged with the Children of the Forest overlaying their magical enchantments to make the durable and light material even superior. King Eddard would keep his oath and provided Shrey with the best education money could buy. Shrey and Jameson grew up together. They would run and explore the secrets of Winterfell, swim in the hot springs of Winterfell, and read about great adventures from the Great Library and much more, together. Shrey would receive a northern education, which would allow her to practice martial skills as well as the scholarly. The two would do everything with each other. Their first words were of the other. Jameson had said Ray and Shrey had said Jam. However, their close relationship did not mean that there were no conflicts. They were fiercely competitive and would constantly try to outdo the others. When Jameson began to excel in swordplay, Shrey became furious and devoted all of her time in archery and began to easily overtaking Jameson. There were 1,000 competitions to see who was the better rider, runner, smarter, more athletic. These competitions allowed the pair to reach their great potential. At the age of 14, Jaehaerys and Eddard, after a short meeting, announced the betrothal between the pair. The two had begun to develop feelings for each other and were very happy with this announcement. The North was shocked, as this was the first time in 2,000 years a Stark married out of the North, the last being the Princess Aelia Dane. In return for Shrey's marriage, the dowry would be all of the items rescued from Valyria. This way, the Baelaris would live on through the Starks. The vast wealth brought with House Baelaris was mixed with the legendary Stark's wealth. Knowing that it wouldn't be safe, keeping all of their gold with the Iron Bank, King Eddard decided to put only half their wealth with the Iron Bank, with the other half being put into their newly made vault. Vast amount of Valyrian steel and winter steel was used to make the giant vault doors, with the walls being 4 layers of very thick granite, reinforced with Valyrian and Children of the Forest magic. The vault was to be impossible to break into, as they had many guards and had personally designed the lock. The vault was deep underground with a single access point by the throne room. There were 6 shifts of 50 guards, constantly guarding the entrance and stairs. After a 10-minute descent, they would reach the vault. The vault was locked with a physical key, held by the king, and another copy hidden in the king's solar, and a blood enchantment to requiring the fresh blood of the main Starks line. The vast amount of gold, precious metal, gems, and amazing weapons were held there. Shrey learned Valyrian magic from her father. Like all Baelaris before her, she was very gifted in the art of magic, understanding and grasping it quickly. It was basic fire magic, warding, and powerful dragon dreams. Jameson also showed great potential in the warding, ice magic, and even some green dreams. This led to another argument between them. Underscore 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 underscore. Jaehaerys snapped out of his musing and watched as a child of the forest said to them, "Who comes before the old gods?" "I, Shrey of House Baelaris." "And I, Jameson of House Stark." "And who gives Shrey of House Baelaris?" "I, Jaehaerys of House Baelaris, gives her to Jameson Stark in front of the old gods." "Who seeks Shrey of House Baelaris?" "I do." "I come to seek Shrey of House Baelaris in front of the old gods," said Jameson. "Do you, Shrey of House Baelaris, take this man as your lawful husband?" "I do." "Do you, Jameson of House Stark, take this woman as your lawful wife?" "I do." Then take off her cloak and replace it with yours. Understand, this symbolizes your commitment and are putting her under your protection. There is no annulment of marriage in the eyes of the old gods. This is your last chance to stop. Jameson stepped forward as Shreya turned around. He reached around and gently took off her red cloak. He passed the cloak to Jaehaerys and then turned to his father, who handed him a new white cloak. This one was white and grey, with the direwolf of House Stark embroidered on it. He took it from his father, then tied it firmly but carefully around her shoulders. As soon as he stepped back, a gust of wind blew through the entire party and all the guests could feel a presence watching them, or more specifically the newly married pair. Soon as if satisfied, the presence left. Sensing the presence leaving, the Vizier said, "I now pronounce you, husband and wife." The real wedding party began with the roar from Magna Umber as he yelled his approvals, backed up by the Giantsmen and Dustins. Underscore 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 underscore. It has been 11 years since that day, and King Jameson Stark stood proudly looking down at his children. The classic look of the Starks and the Valyrians merged with them. They had dark brown hair, but each with a streak of silver running down the left side of the face. The classic long Stark face was slightly shortened. It was still considered to be long, but it wasn't too long as it used to be with most Starks. Their cheekbones become more defined. Both House Stark and House Baelorys had strong jaws, so that remained. The Stark nose became slightly sharper and more aristocratic, and their shoulders remained broad, but their build slimmed down a little, making them more lean. Their eyes, however, was the strangest part. For all 5 of the children, they had the one eye being grey and the other royal purple. When his first child was born, he assumed that it was just a rare case, but then his second son had the same eyes, followed by his daughter as well. By his second daughter he was barely surprised, and with his last-born son, it was expected. The Valyrian perfect immaculate beauty and the Stark's commoner beauty merged, finding a halfway point. Where nobody could call a Stark as ugly anymore, but they were not the perfect otherworldly beauty of the Valyrians. They were approachable when they smiled, regal when they were serious, and godly when angry. His thoughts were interrupted when his beautiful wife came straight at him and half asked and half demanded, "Why didn't you tell me about these ice dragons?" "Because, Ray, they are a myth." Yet, people have repeated said that they have seen one. People from the north, Braavos, and even Lorath. But no one has distinct proof. No one has ever brought one back or have any proof of their existence. No bones, no teeth, or anything at all. It doesn't matter. If the Valyrians were able to get amazingly powerful through the dragons, imagine what a bigger, stronger one could do for us. Ray, they are a myth. A commoner tale made up to entertain themselves. Besides, even if they are real, who says we could control them? Please, my ancestors were famous for taming dragons, and your family has a gifted ability to control animals. I have read most of the books on dragon taming in the Great Library and the Stark Personal Library. I think we will be fine. True, but they might be immune to us trying to walk into them. Would it hurt to try? If it turns out to be true and kills us, yes. Don't you need to visit Braavos anyway? Why not pass through the Shivering Sea, just in case? When we sail back, we can sail between Lightwatch to Braavos. It won't even get in your way. You have to talk to the High Magna of the Wall and the Night's Watch to make sure they have enough men anyway. So why not kill 3 birds with 1 stone? You get to do what you need to in both the Wall and Braavos, and you get to sate my curiosity. I promise you, I will make it up to you, said Queen Shreya with a smirk at the end. Fine, but our kids are coming with us, said King Jameson, and in a small whisper continued, and you will be making it up to me, a lot. Underscore 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 underscore. King Jameson looked at the horizon, where Braavos was coming into view. The Titan of Braavos was jointly built by House Stark and the Sea Lord of Braavos. Its designs were based on the great statues of the Northern Canal. He then turned to his wife and said, "Told you so. We met no ice dragons." Queen Shrey turned to him and glared, "You never know. We have the trip back as well." "True, but..." Queen Shrey cut him off and said, "Don't finish that sentence, unless you want to sleep on the floor tonight." King Jameson held his hands up in surrender with a smile and said, "Fine. I won't." They looked at Braavos in a comfortable silence, till they reached the harbour. King Jameson then moved to step off the boat. After helping his wife and children off the boat, said, "Let us go to the Iron Bank. I want the managers to get to know our children as well." King Jameson, Queen Shrey and their kids, made their way to the impressive headquarters of the Iron Bank with their guards following closely behind them. They entered the building and headed to a teller. The teller was reading his book, not looking at him, asked, "What is the purpose of your visit?" "To meet with the bank managers. They are very busy." "I have an appointment." "I am sure you do." "Yes, and if you look up, you will see that what I say is indeed true." The teller finally looked up at King Jameson. At first the man didn't recognize him, then his eyes widened. King Jameson Stark. The very same. "This is my wife, Queen Shrey Stark nee Belaris, and these are my children. Brandon, Raro, Sansa, Jaehaerys, and Myra. Now can you lead us to the bank manager's office?" "Of course, your grace." "Right away," said the teller, hurrying to lead them towards the bank manager's office. "Your grace, I am terribly sorry. I meant no disrespect. I was being childish and stupid, please forgive me." "Don't worry, Qohar, your grace." "Don't worry, Qohar, people make mistakes. Just don't make the same mistake again. Men of similar ranking as me are not known to be lenient." "Of course, your grace, of course." "Well, here is the bank manager's office. I do believe they are expecting you." "Thank you, Qohar, and I hope you take my advice seriously." "I will, your grace." King Jameson confidently knocked on the door before walking in. The room was impressive, being tall enough to house a giant. There was large mirrorish glass windows looking outwards with a view of the Titan and the bustling harbour. Unlike other businesses, the Iron Bank was not run by one person solely. It was upheld by 5 people, and instead of having separate offices, they had one large impressive room. When they saw King Jameson walk in, they all stood up. "King Jameson, nice to see you again. These must be your family members. You are as beautiful as ever, Queen Shrey. And of course your children, the first ones to break the classic Stark look in a century." "I must say, your grace, you seem to have raised them well," said the lead bank manager, while looking at the children. "When we received your message requesting for this meeting, we were all pondering why. When the Starks first helped the founding of the Iron Bank, King Benjen Stark said that you may use our currency and loans in return, that the Iron Bank gives special bonus to House Stark. And we have been doing that for centuries. That was not why I am here. There was something else. You also swore that once you had a high enough reputation, you would open a branch in Wintercity. You have become the strongest and most popular bank in the known world. I ask you hold your end of the bargain. I know that the Lannisters, Arryns, and the Gardeners have approached you for the same thing. Ah, very well. Please sit down and we can iron out the details right now. Although, perhaps your children and Queen Shrey would like to see Braavos instead." "Thank you, Bank Manager Griffook," said King Jameson, before turning to his family members. "Everybody but Brandon can leave and see the city if you want. Brandon, the Iron Bank is a very important ally of House Stark. I need you to remain, watch, and learn." The Stark family stayed in Braavos for a few more days. While Wintercity was one of the largest cities in all of Westeros, it did not quite have the diversity of Braavos. Braavos contained men from as far as Yeti or the mysterious lands of Ashai. They found the most exotic food, clothing and other goods, which the Stark family had a great time exploring and learning about. In a week's time, they were sailing back towards Lightwatch when a massive storm hit. King Jameson looked to the captain and said, "We need to land. We have got to back to Braavos, or unless you know of an island nearby." "We are too far out to go back now, your grace. We are too far from Braavos. I can't afford to put the sails at their maximum, for it might snap the mast and we would be forced to travel perpendicular with the winds." I have heard rumors of a cluster of islands further north, but that goes further into the storm. We can't go straight south, because even if we avoid the storm, we might run out of food and water. However, the winds could help us. As long as our masts holds, the winds should propel us further, allowing us to escape the storm and find another trading vessel. There are many within the narrow sea, and all we would need to do is approach the most used trade lines. If it breaks, however, we are done for. A storm like this could go on for days, so our mast needs to last that long. What is the mast made of? Oak wood. Damn. If it was ironwood, I would take your suggestion. How many rumors of this island cluster have you heard? Quite a few. All from different people in both Lightwatch, Skagos, and Bravos. Do you have an estimated location? I do, said the captain while pulling out the map. I heard that it was roughly 4 days to get to the islands to Bravos. Around 5 days from the island to Asgard, and roughly 6 days from the islands to Lightwatch. And by making a circle within those parameters, we can roughly know its location by the points where the 3 circle overlaps. We can eliminate some of the area because we know it is up north. It would need to be further north than the normal trade route between Lightwatch and Bravos. So draw the normal routes most boats take and we can eliminate more areas. Take the Skagos trade routes into considerations as well and the areas visible from Skagos. After careful deliberation, they had a rough area of where the islands was. King Jameson turned to Queen Shrey and asked, "Do you agree with this plan?" "It's our best bet." "I agree." "Very well then, Captain, I believe we have a plan. If we survive this, I will get your ship upgrade with the ironwood mast. I will make sure to take you up on that offer. Underscore 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 underscore. King Jameson stood atop the deck of the boat with the rest of the crew looking out the ocean, hoping to see the island cluster. They had been sailing for a day, going straight towards their goal. They had reached the area where the islands cluster most likely were, and was searching for the last hour. "Come on. Where are you islands?" After 30 minutes of sailing, they were going to run out of spaces to check at this rate. Feeling worried, he called the captain over and asked, "Where in the area are we currently?" "Right here, Your Grace. If we cannot find it after turning and sailing for 2 hours, then we are doomed." "We will find it." Underscore 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 underscore. They were reaching the last of the area with the island was nowhere in sight. Damn. It should be in this area. Where could we have gone wrong? We calculated everything. We even made our travel through the area as effective as possible. Then it hit him. "Captain, I think I know why we didn't find the island." "Why?" "Because we were considering the view range of a person not in a storm. We still left areas within the calculated zone blank." "Of course. How did I not realize that? So we still have hope. I shall set sail to fill in the empty areas." Underscore 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 underscore. They were nearing the edge, yet they still found nothing. Everybody has lost hope. Morale was at an all-time low. King Jameson was about to stop looking till he saw a grey outline. "Captain, look over there. Do you see it as well? Or am I just seeing a wave?" "Do I see what?" "I don't see anything," said the captain. "Wait. I think that is an island." "Hey Samuel, look over there. Is it an island?" "But that is out of our area of search." "But of course, I forgot to account for human error." "That is an island all right," yelled Samuel. "Set sail. Let us go." underscore 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 underscore. They had found a suitable island with sandy beach. They dragged the boat up the beach and took the items such as the sail. It would be very useful, using it like a tarp. They went to the edge of the forest on the island and used the sail to shield them from the water and wind. While that was happening, a group of men went into the forest to collect firewood. All of the wood found was wet, but luckily Shreya's Valyrian magic allowed her to create fire. Unfortunately the heat had to come from somewhere. So they each offered a little bit of their warmth and soon they had a few fires going. Using massive leaves from a tree some of the men had found, they laid the ground with the leaves and were able to sleep on something other than the wet ground. The next morning the men took stock. They have plenty of water from the rain. They were even collecting more for the journey to Lightwatch. Food was the main problem for the journey. They were here to wait out the storm. That alone could take days. Then the journey back is roughly 5 days. There was no way around it. They need more food. King Jameson stood up and said we need to go hunting. Some of us needs to try and fish, although I doubt it will lead to much, especially in the storm, but who knows. My wife and I shall go hunting, so can another group, but a group needs to be here keeping the fire going. Hunting in the rain isn't the best way to keep warm and we might not have enough warmth within us to start the fire again. Do you agree, Captain? Why are you asking me, Your Grace? You are the king. True, but I heard that ship crews work differently. That only the captain matter in the ocean. That will be true, Your Grace, and it will be surprising if you can find a sailor that will listen to you while sailing in the middle of the ocean. But we are not at sea, are we? We are on land and here we are back to being your humble servant, Your Grace. Very well. Let us get to it. Underscore 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 underscore. King Jameson was a very able tracker. It was one of the activities that he was able to beat his wife in. He could stalk his prey without making a noise, training himself from a young age, through the hunts and training he received from the Order of the Green Rangers. But compared to his wife, he could not fire a bow to save his life. Sure, he could get the arrow near his target, but his beautiful wife would hit the bullseye every time. She would even practice even splitting the arrows. /N, I know that isn't possible, but who cares? So instead of acting proud, he handed off his bow to his wife, who didn't bring hers from Winterfell. The forest was pretty dense, but a bit of rain still got through the leaves. There were mostly oakwood and ashwood trees. Not a single weirwood or ironwood tree was in sight. They found some small game like squirrels and rabbits. They were not too difficult to find, especially to experienced hunters like King Jameson and Queen Shreya. King Jameson would lead her to the general area of the animal. They would find it the actual exact location together. And she would shoot it, nailing it without damaging the body. They soon fell into a rhythm. He had found deer tracks, but the tracks themselves very cold. Maybe 2 days old. So they decided not to follow it. Thinking they had to head back with only small game, they were about to turn around and leave till they saw a young buck bolting through the forest. They were about to follow the buck, until an ominous feeling ran throughout their bodies. What was he running from? Instantly worried, they turned around with King Jameson drew his knife. His wolf's blood slowly awakened as he could feel even the most tiniest detail, like the drops of rain rolling down the tree, the sound of the young buck running away, and the beast which chased it. He didn't bring his sword as it would have gotten in the way to hunting. He regretted that choice now, but was thankful that the knife was forged with Valyrian winter steel. A massive lion-like animal but with an orange body with black stripes came charging through, only to come to a stop seeing them. The animal's intelligent eyes was studying them, determining if they were truly a threat. The animal had never seen a being like them before. The island having been completely desolate. King Jameson and the animal had a staring contest, before the animal tensed up. Instinctively knowing that it was about to pounce. King Jameson jumped to the side as the animal pounced. Queen Shreya moved to the side and saw a clear shot, fired a shot at it. But because of terrible luck, the animal jumped once more towards King Jameson at that exact same time, making a killing shot to a mere glancing shot. It embedded itself in the side of the beast, but it was nowhere enough to stop or hurt the beast. It roared in annoyance, then turned to glare at her. It hit the shaft of the arrow, ripping it out so it would not get in its way. It then charged at her. Unable to shoot before she got ripped to pieces, threw her bow at the animal, distracting it, before rolling out of the way. She knew that the bow could get in the way of her roll and a single mistake here could lead to her death. Queen Shreya and King Jameson looked at each other and ran. Annoyingly and gratefully, they had to run the opposite direction of the camp. It was annoying because the men in the camp that could help them take care of the animal, but it was grateful because their kids were there and could have possibly been harmed. As they ran, they would cut or break branches of trees and kicking up much dirt as possible, hoping that it would be enough to stop the animal. Not bothering to stop and check, they ran until they saw a clearing. They dreaded what could be in the clearing, but knew that they could not turn. Turning would slow them down, allowing the animal to catch them. They got through the clearing, and dread filled them. The clearing was a dead end, with a cliff at the end. Then ran towards the cliff, hoping that it was low enough for them to survive the jump. They peered over the edge and saw a drop that clearly wasn't survivable. They turned around to see the animal slowly approaching them. It knew that they were trapped. King Jameson moved in front of Queen Shreya, putting her firmly behind him, and held his knife. As it was approaching, King Jameson saw stones at his feet. He quickly picked the bigger ones up and threw them at the animal. The animal reared up in surprise, not expecting anything to be thrown at it. It hit him hard, but it was merely another annoyance to the big beast. The beast growled and pounced towards them. They were barely able back up far enough by hugging the edge of a cliff. A step more and they would fall off and die. In a last desperate attempt, King Jameson threw his knife. It spun perfectly, moving fluidly through the air. It embedded itself within the beast's eye. It roared in pain, and for a second King Jameson thought it worked. Till the beast turned back to him with his good eye, glaring. With nothing else to defend themselves and nowhere to run, they watched as the beast pounced one last time at the pair. They closed their eyes, waiting for the pain to come, only for it not to. Instead they heard a loud screech, cutting through the air. Confused, they slowly opened their eyes, to see two massive eagles. Picking up the beast and throwing it into a tree. As the beast tried to get up and run, the bigger eagle brought down its sharp talon-like claws and killed the beast. It then slowly turned its eyes to the king and queen, who had their eyes opened wide in shock. In front of them was a magical beast. A massive eagle which could easily carry King Jameson. Its talons sharp enough to claw through thick hide. It could fly at incredible speeds. The one in front of them had gold feathers and sharp, intelligent black eyes. Looking right back at King Jameson as he stared. King Jameson once again moved Queen Shreya behind him and slowly backed up, until they found that they could not back up more, as they hit the edge of the cliff. The eagle landed on top of the cliff, and looked at the pair curiously. Queen Shreya, overcome with curiosity, stepped forward and reached out to touch it. The eagle flinched back quickly, but upon realizing that she merely wanted to touch her, moved its head back to her hand, allowing her to touch it. Its feathers are so soft and it is really warm. King Jameson could only stare at the eagle in awe. His mouth was hanging open. Seeing this, Queen Shreya smiled and said, "You should close your mouth before a wolf goes down your throat." With a loud clop, King Jameson closed his mouth. He also reached out to feel it. Is this what spawned the myths of the ice dragon? I assume so. I guess we were both wrong. We didn't find a dragon, but we still found a mythical creature. The eagle then screeched, but not at them. Soon more flapping wings could be heard as a dozen more eagles came out. None of them were nearly as big as fully grown dragons, but they were still massive in size. They looked majestic with their golden feathers, flying through the sky. Pushing her luck, she said, "Do you think you can take us back to our camp?" The eagle lowered its head and wings, which Queen Shreya assumed was an invitation to get on. So she carefully put her legs atop the eagle. Another dragon slightly bigger than the first one came down and lowered its head in front of King Jameson. King Jameson careful got on and yelped surprised when it lifted him before he was quite settled, forcing him to quickly grab onto the feathers hoping that it would be enough. Queen Shreya laughed at the sight and they shot off into the sky. They flew over the forest and made great time. They reached the camp in less than a half hour, when it would have taken them an hour or two to walk back. As they landed near the camps, the entire crew ran out with makeshift weapons to meet them. Sensing the eagles get antsy, she jumped down from the dragon and quickly calmed the men. Woo! Stop! They saved us. They save us from this beast. And with that, an eagle threw down the dead body of the massive beast, and before the men could ask questions, the two youngest of the Stark family ran forward towards the eagles and hugged two of the really small ones. They both yelled birdie. The two small eagles looked very uncomfortable and was trying to get out. The older and bigger eagles looked at the two with an amused stare. King Jameson then walked up to the kids and said, "Okay, that's enough kids, you don't want to choke your birds, do you?" They quickly let go of the eagles and said no. "Then be gentle with them, okay?" "Okay Dad," said the kids. They then ran to catch the two small eagles that had flown off, as soon as they were released. His oldest child Ender walked up and said, "Could I have one too?" Unable to resist the puppy dog eyes of his son, or in this case his wolf eyes, said, "That isn't up to me. Ask the bird that you want." With a smile Brandon ran forward to an eagle with eyes the color of ice. He asked, "Will you be my friend?" The eagle seemed to look over Brandon, who looked seeming pleased, flew towards and landed on his shoulder. It then turned to look at the direwolf following Brandon, named Storm for its grey and dark grey fur. Only Brandon had a direwolf, out of his children, as they were only allowed one at the age of 7. The direwolf and the eagle had a staring match for a few seconds before seeming to approve of the other. Raro then walked up to the eagles and picked out one with sea green eyes. Even before he could ask the question, the eagle flew up towards him and landed in his hair. It curled up and sat there. Little Sansa walked up and stared at her dad, not even bothering to ask the question. Sighing, he said, "Fine, you can have one as well." With a bright smile, she ran up to the darker golden eagle with emerald eyes, and hugged it. She said, "I am going to call you Emerald." As he watched his kids, he suddenly felt really weak. He watched as his wife seemed to be the same. He then realized the problem. He was freezing. He hunted, fought a beast, and rode an eagle in the sky through the rain. He didn't feel the cold before, due to the rush of his blood, but it was running out and he felt the cold ebb in his bones. He turned to the men and said, "Please take me and my wife to the fire." With that, King Jameson fell down on his knees, his body collapsing from exhaustion. Underscore 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 underscore. King Jameson shot awake and found he was wrapped in blankets near a fire, underneath a tub. He tried to rise up to his feet, only to feel really tired. He croaked water. Seeing as nobody came in, he half yelled and half croaked water. Soon a man came out of their tents, saw the king awake and rushed to his side. When he realized he wanted water, ran to the water container and with a cup and got a glass of water. He then headed over to King Jameson and handed him the glass. King Jameson took a long drink before asking, "How long was I out?" "Only 2 days, your grace." "Good. Did anything important happen?" "Apart from the eagles." "Apart from them?" "Well, the storm seems to be going away. I doubt it would last much longer. Your kids seemed to have named their eagles. Oh, and as you can see, your wife hasn't awakened yet." "Thank you. Seeing as how I woke up, I am sure she will soon as well. Are we ready to sail as soon as the weather clears?" "Yes. We can leave when the storm clears and your wife wakes up." "Good. I think I am going to go back to sleep now," said King Jameson as he fell down back in his bedroll, sound asleep. Underscore 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 underscore. King Jameson woke up with the sound of his wife waking up. He shot up to look at his wife, who turned to him and croaked, "How long was I out?" "Well, I was out for 2 days and I went back to sleep," "So I have no idea," said King Jameson as he got up to go to the barrel of water. He took a cup, filled it with water, then brought back the cool water to his wife. "Drink. It will help with your throat." She said thanks and drank the water. After both of them had their thirst satisfied, they got out of bed and went to find the people. Queen Shreya had to lean on King Jameson as she still felt weak from being knocked out for more than 2 days. When one of the crew members saw that they were awake, he yelled at the captain, "The dead awakes." Hearing this, the captain came out of his tent, soon followed by their kids. The 2 daughters jumped in their father's arm, while the 3 sons flocked to their mother. Their eagles flew closely behind them. With the 2 girls still in his arm, King Jameson asked the captain, "When are we leaving?" "Tomorrow, your grace. The storm has ended last night, we stocked up on our food and water. Now that you have woken up, we can be on our way. So we prepare everything today and leave at first light tomorrow." "I am worried though, how shall we transport the eagles?" said Queen Shreya. "I was pondering that as well," said King Jameson. He then turned to the eagles that came out, and asked, "Can you guys fly out into the ocean?" The eagle shook his head. He asked, "I see. If I could transport you all to my home, would you want to come?" The eagle once again nodded, and so did all the other eagles present. King Jameson said, "Captain Swash, just take us back to Light Watch. Drop off there. We will make our way back to Winterfell on foot. From there resupply and go down to Widow's Watch. I will give you a letter with my seal on it. It shall command a part of the Eastern Navy to sail out back to these islands with more boats and carry the eagles across into my lands. I need you to lead and guide them back there. After you have done that and you make it back to Widow's Watch, I will get you that ironwood upgrade. Underscore 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 underscore. Bloody Era of Westeros, a synopsis. Underscore 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 underscore. House Mud, kings of the rivers and hills, faced major defeat in the Clawman Rebellion. After their conquest of House Bracken, the Mud Kings were consolidating their forces, before the Clawman revolted. House Darklyn, with the backing of House Brune, House Staunton, and House Rosby, took back the Claw and all the way to Blackwater Bay. They could declare themselves as the 8th Kingdom of Westeros. House Mud, having the deal with the Ironborn raiders, could not mount an attacking force to recapture lost lands. Their lands reached from the edge of Neck all the way past the God's Eye before the Claw. During the Durrandon War for the Dornish Marches, House Darklyn would declare a surprise war and manage to conquer all the way to Sharp Point. They declared themselves King of the Claw. House Durrandon could not retaliate after angering House Martell so much, fearing an attack from behind if they decided to attack the Clawmen. This would secure the strength of House Darklyn for years to come. King Dusk Darklyn would order the creation of the biggest castle in the south with the rebuilding of Duskendale. However, even after major victories against 2 main kingdoms, all 7 kingdoms refused to acknowledge their sovereignty for 200 years. Underscore 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 underscore. House Martell was now finally able to expand their power. Trades routes from the southern free cities such as Lys, Myr, Teosh and Volantis went to Sunspear before trading with the rest of Westeros, while Bravos, Pentos, and Lorath went to White Harbor or the other cities in the north to trade with Westeros. House Martell used their large navy as a protection company against the pirates of the Stepstones. The Martells even began talks of conquering the Stepstones to increase their power. House Martell also got an access to a rarewood called balsawood through trade. Famed for its lightweight and amazing uses for a boat, House Martell had gained a new source of income. The wood grew well in Drone, especially with the remunerated of the Watermage's amazing irrigation systems and constant care. The Martell fleet would be known for its speed and maneuverability. House Martell would battle House Durrandon for the control over the Dornish marches. After many battles, most of the marches would fall under the Principality of Dorne, however, a large portion of it remained in Durrandon lands. To prevent further war, peace was declared with the marriages of a Martell to House Durrandon for both heirs. Underscore 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 underscore. House Dane would begin an ambitious project to begin walling and guarding the few entrants to Starfall. This would make Starfall near impregnable from land. They would also invest in growing their docks and navy to gain better trade routes and a better defense. This investment in the docks allowed Startown to grow into a respectable town. They could rival House Martell's power and is considered to be their most powerful vassals. When Prince Mors II of House Martell attempted to rape Lady Alyssa Dane, House Dane rose in rebellion, starting the Alyssa's Rebellion. They would defeat House Martell, choosing to place the Red Prince upon the throne after sending Mors to the war. Underscore 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 underscore. House Durrandon had its great power and glory decline for a long time. It began with the Andal invasion and King Maldon's betrayal. Whilst trying to assimilate the Andal culture into their kingdom, they had lost control of the Riverlands to the House Mud. Their conquest of Dorne had been foiled by the Martells, and in that defeat allowed the creation of the Kingdom of the Claw. They had made no real advancements in science or any victories in battle for thousands of years. Only having faced losses in the Andal Crusades, war for the Dornish Marches, war for the Claw. Underscore 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 underscore. Unlike House Durrandon, House Lannister grew in strength. They had become one of the dominant powers in Westeros. They destroyed House Westerling and their power base, as they were once a threat to House Lannister's power. Lannisport was developed into one of the biggest cities in Westeros, competing with Old Town. With a population of 200,000 people, Lannisport brought great wealth to House Lannister in trade. They were able to use both the Northern Canal to trade with the Northern Free Cities and the Southern Seas to trade with the Southern Free Cities without worrying about the pirates that infested the Narrow Sea. They would attempt to match House Stark's success and make Casterly Rock into a grand castle, however, while beautiful and extravagant, it could not compare to the beauty of Winterfell. House Lannister would build a great fleet to combat the never-ending Ironborn raids and even make a few advancements in science. House Lannister and House Gardener fought the war for the Lady. It started when King Tytos Lannister and King Loras Gardener tried to court the same Vale Lady. After months of courting, the lady chose King Tytos, no small part due to his generous gifts. Furious, King Loras hired assassins to kill her. When King Tytos foiled the assassination attempt, he attacked the Reach with both the Lannister men and the Second Sons, a relatively new sellsword company formed by a coalition of the many Second Sons of Westeros and Essos. King Tytos wanted to hire the Blood Company, but was informed that they were busy with something else, so they hired the Second Sons instead. With the surprise attack, the Lannisters had his men strike quickly into the Reach. Because the Reach had no natural defenses, the Lannister were able to quickly push through, taking the Old Oak and the Golden Grove within the first year of the War for the Lady. However, the Lannister grew cocky in their success and kept pushing forward, overextending themselves. House Tarly led the numerous Gardener men and encircled the Lannisters' men. Many perished and were pushed back to the border. They began their counter-attack and started to push into Lannister borders, Silverhill and Kraken Hall being the first to fall. This would continue for a decade, with neither houses gaining the decisive victory. As soon as victory became apparent, the other did something to tip the scales in their favor. The War for the Lady lasted 100 years, with many ceasefires and battles, with the war having ended with no true winner. Nobody had gained new significant ground or resources. They had both lost men, alliances, and resources, without anything to show for it. This soured the relationship between House Lannister and House Gardener for generations. However, House Lannister's major downfall is their extravagant nature. While many Lannister kings focused on compounding and growing their wealth, most of their attempts were foiled by their spoilt children and grandchildren who would allow their attempts to fail and focus only upon living lavishly. It would take 12 generations for House Lannister to be able to grow Lannisport into a respectable size. All because so many of the kings couldn't plan ahead. Underscore 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 underscore. House Stark was growing powerful, training the giant eagles with a select few ever being allowed to ride one. An existing Congiorn rider had to grant a chance to the person who they believe is worthy, and said person had to get picked by a giant eagle, or as they were now named Congiorn. Only then were they deemed fit to be trained as a Congiorn rider. They were trained to be a master aerial fighter, with the ability to shoot bows up in the air with extreme accuracy, and the masters were even known to jump from one eagle to another for close combat. They wielded Valyrian steel-coated spears, as they were the most effective weapon in killing a Congiorn and presumably a dragon. These became House Stark's answers to the dragons of House Targaryen and House Veltigar, the former which were growing more aggressive. House Stark faced a war during the Bloody Era with the War for the Little Sister. Underscore 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 underscore. Rhaegar Bolton stood atop the Golden Goddess, the flagship for the greatest sellsword company in existence, the Blood Company. The company was founded by their ancestors Domeric Bolton. Once Domeric realized that the House Bolton had all but been obliterated, he took on the Bolton name and passed it down the generations. His family had been part of the Blood Company since its founding, and he was finally going to conquer the North. Rhaegar had heard that a young new king had just taken to the throne and knew that this was an opportunity. The Blood Company contained 30,000 men, since they had expanded rapidly, with the induction of freed pit fighters. They knew that they would never be able to take the entirety of the North, but they believed that they could take Little Leicester and set their base there. Rhaegar Bolton was sure that this would be a grand return of the Boltons. He was sure that once the southern kingdoms heard that the North was getting attacked, that all the southern kingdoms would join in the attack, leaving the North vulnerable to the Boltons. Underscore 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 underscore. A watchman walked along the lighthouses of the Little Leicester. He worked for House Frost, who made their money through selling ice to the southern kingdoms. When he saw a ship approach, he sounded the first alarm. It was to alert the men that a boat was approaching. But when he noticed the size, he sounded the second alarm. It was massive in size compared to most ships that visited the Little Leicester. He sounded a third alarm when the massive ship rammed through most of the boats that was docked in the harbor. The men scrambled to get ready, putting on armor, and pulling out a weapon. The archers soon began raining arrows down upon the men, but their ammunition does not last long, forcing the defensive force soon got overrun, with some of the men retreating into Frostkeep. Underscore 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 underscore. Magna Torrin Frost knew that they were in trouble. They had to hold the keep, until His Grace sent men to come and reinforce them. Knowing that he had to buy time, he himself got on the wall and began firing arrows down upon the men. Underscore 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 underscore. Magna Torrin knew their end was near. It has been 3 months since the Blood Company attacked them. He was shocked to see the Bolton banners flying with the Blood Company's banner, but he couldn't get the word out to House Stark to inform them, as all of their messengers were killed and all ravens shot down. For all he knew, House Stark might not even be aware of his family's impending doom. Their arrow supply was dwindling after fighting off a siege for 3 months. While they had some decent water supply, but food was running out as they were just leaving the last of winter. He braced himself as he watched the Blood Company once again charge toward the walls of Frostkeep. Normally, most would avoid storming a castle, but Frostkeep was small and the Blood Company knew that they had to quickly gain control of the island before they were attacked. He knew that Frostkeep would not last another day, with the exhausted manpower. He decided to be with the contingent of men near the gate, to fight off any men that make their way through. The gates started to pound and shake, straining. Knowing that the Blood Company were now using their battering ram, Magnatoran drew his sword and the pikesmen also got ready. They had all gotten into formation and lowered their pike down toward the gate. We are the first men. We do not bow to some fucking sellsword company. This may be our end, but I am damn sure I will make sure to drag a dozen of those bastards with me. Who are we? Said Magnatoran. The first men. Let's show those bastards what being a northerner means. Underscore 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 underscore. With a loud crack, the gates broke open to let the horde of men through. The pikesmen stabbed and pushed against the horde of men, but minute by minute they tired. Soon one pikesman fell, then another. It led to a domino effect, of the entire units losing their pikes, or being killed. Magnatoran fought back 3 soldiers himself, with 4 of his sworn swords protecting his back. They pushed and stabbed their way into the second layer of defense, which was the castle itself. Magnatoran had ordered the archers and men to retreat to the castle. Frostkeep was one large structure, rather than a contingent of many. So with the food and water moved into the keep, they would have another place in which they could make their stand, and the men had to cover a smaller area. As soon as he ran through the doors of the keep, it was barricaded. The archers rushed to the windows of the keep and towers and fired down more arrows. A soldier asked Magnatoran why won't they just burn the keep down. Because they want to rule this land. They cannot rule in ashes. Magnatoran knew that this was their last stand. Although they only had to cover a smaller area, they had fewer men and fewer equipment. So he ordered another group of pikesmen to once again get ready in front of the doors. Magnatoran believed himself to be doomed. The doors of the keep shook once more and Magnatoran prepared to hold the gate with only 6 other men. He pulled out his sword and waited. The doors flew inwards with a bang, opening up to an army of men. Magnatoran screamed a battle cry and charged forward, slaying men left and right, with his group of best fighters in the keep. 24 men fell before the first of the 7 fell. For a split second Magnatoran believed they could hold them back. But 7 was not enough to hold back hundreds. Soon the first of the 7 fell to a captain of the Blood Company. Then another. With only 3 of the 7 left, Magnatoran prepared himself of the end. He stepped back, when he noticed the blazing fire behind the attacking men. One of his men came running to him and said, "My lord, a fire is lighting the company's ships. There is fighting at the back of the enemy army. Reinforcement has arrived, boys. Let's show these eastern fuckers the power of the first men." With renewed vigor the men charged through to beat back the now disorganized. With the reinforcement the attacking force was dispelled. King Jameson led the charge with the legendary greatsword, Ice, seemingly slicing through 6 men at once. But what surprised him the most was the fact that a figure, whose silver hair informed him was Queen Shrey, was riding a massive eagle and raining arrows down upon the Blood Company. When the Boltons and the company leaders realized their doom, they had run away with the remaining forces. Once King Jameson had all the remaining survivors of the other side rounded up and bound, he walked towards Magnatoran, who had knelt. "Your Grace, thank you for coming to my aid." "It is not a problem, Magnatoran. It is my duty as king to help my Magnas in their time of need. I am sorry for not being able to come here sooner, but I got stranded out in the sea and only got back 2 weeks ago. When I heard of the Blood Company and the Bolton return, I had rallied my men to come as quickly as possible. Thank you, Your Grace. I will get my men to rebuild your keep as quickly as possible, and my men can patrol your lands, until you are back to your full strength. I will be happy to accept your help." Good, now I must reward my little brother. King Jameson walked off to his little brother who was cleaning his blade. When he saw King Jameson approach, he got up and walked to King Jameson. James, do you need something? I require you to bend the knee, Car. Carlon Stark quickly kneeled and said, what is this about? I, King Jameson Stark, second of my name. King of the North and the Isles. King of Winter and High Magna of Winterfell, commend you of your valiance in putting down the 5th Bolton invasion. If it wasn't for you actions to burn the Blood Company's navy, they would not have been so distracted and we would have faced a much greater loss. In return for your service, I grant you the lands above the Giantspans, next to the Umbers. May you rule faithfully. I, High Magna Carlon Stark, first of my name. Swear myself to House Stark. May my family forever serve yours faithfully. King Jameson the Eagle Stark, brought back the Congrans from the island which he named the Shivering Isles. All 75 eagles were brought back, and under the guidance of Jaehaerys and Shrei, they had built 5 eagle towers, by the lonely mountain near Winterfell. It had come up at the same time the volcano had come up for House White Estok, except this mountain wasn't volcanic anymore. It was just a normal mountain without any valuable resource. The land was repurposed to hold the towers for the Congiorns to nest and live in. The Congrans would only listen to a select few people. This would make the Riders Guild very exclusive. All riders must be approved by a pre-existing rider and by a Congran. Their numbers have never reached higher than 200 members. It was during the reign of King Jameson, it was discovered that outside of the main Stark line, nobody could inherit the strand of silver hair or the jewel-colored eyes. House Stark was the only house in the world to own more than a 4 Valyrian steel blade. The fact that House Stark was able to improve the blades was the envy of all other houses and a sore subject with House Targaryen and House Veltigar. Underscore 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 underscore. Outside of the north, the power vacuum left by the absence of the old Valyrian freehold was now mostly filled by the Veltigars. They had stopped what could have been an entire era of blood. The Dothraki horde still rolled over many free cities, burning the once highly population cities, and created the vast Dothraki Sea. While the Dothraki destroyed the outlying free cities, House Veltigar took the opportunity to gain back some of their strength. Unlike House Targaryen, who moved all of their dragons, wealth, and weapons to Dragonstone, House Veltigar merely moved 1/5 of their full strength. When the Dothraki came, the once younger dragons had matured. They were breeding new dragons, increasing their numbers to 20, although 13 of them were mere hatchlings or the very old dragons from before the Doom. Aemon the Reborn became the first Dragon King of Volantis. When the Dothraki finally reached the outskirts of Volantis, House Veltigar burned and killed their horses, precious blood riders. The Dothraki for the first time faced true defeat and fled back to their Greatkull. When the Greatkull was unable to breach Volantis, he was betrayed by his blood riders, who killed and destroyed the Dothraki Union. Underscore 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 underscore. House Veltigar expanded their lands, taking lies through their new dragons, with hopes of creating a new Valyrian freehold. However, it was not meant to be, as the other free cities learned and improved. The very first lesson on dragon warfare was learnt: one could not win an open battle with dragons, without taking thousands of losses. Astapa modified their training of the Unsullied. While most of them individually they were the same skill level as a hedge knight, together they were a legion with an unbreakable will and teamwork. They formed small groups that they made formations with. These same groups formed a larger group. They were trained to mirror the old Gislock steppe legions, but with more versatility. They could split up apart and form back together in a blink of an eye. They could stand their ground against anything and were trained to be fearless. Their main weakness was their inability to take initiative. The Unsullied would never make a move unless commanded, unable to take advantage of any weaknesses that might appear, unless ordered to. With a skilled commander the army could respond quickly to a dragon's sweeping fire attack. While they lacked the ability to kill a dragon, a large force could march in the face of a dozen dragons and manage to capture the commanding officers. The large fields of Essos allowed this type of fighting to be a viable move, as the fields allowed for great mobility. Cover while helpful, it also prevented mobility and no cover could stop the dragon fire for long. The other free cities learned guerrilla warfare is the best way to beat them. Braavos refused to fight in an open battle with the new Valyrian Empire, facing them in the field of economics, destroying supply lines and fighting proxy wars. Whenever the Veltigars turned their eye towards Braavos or their allies, they faced uprisings, much larger and well-equipped bandits, skyrocketing prices, and recalling of loans. This does not mean the new Valyrian Empire did not expand. Teosh fell to the new Valyrian Empire, followed by Illyria, Gozai, and Velos. But the other free cities, when fighting against the new Valyrian Empire, had cut off supply lines, burned down camps at night, and never engaging them in an all-out battle. Underscore 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 underscore. Within Westeros, almost a century had passed since the fall of Old Valyria, before House Targaryens made their move. Unlike House Veltigar, House Targaryen had nearly a century to breed their dragons. Their 10 dragons were bred and grown to be 30 dragons. It was very lucky that dragons felt the effect of incest to a much smaller degree. A dragon could not breed with their own parents or siblings, but could be bred with their cousins. Only in truly desperate situations were siblings bred together. House Targaryens were planning their invasion of the Seven Kingdoms, with their newfound strength with the dragons. Dragon Lord Aerion stood in the battle room, where they had the view out to the sea and the most detailed map of Westeros in the world. On the large board, there were pieces to symbolize all of the great houses of Westeros. The crown of the Mutts spanned the Riverlands. The falcon of the Arryns crowded around the Vale. The lions of the Lannisters covered the Westerlands. The hand of the Gardeners were the most numerous of them all and covered the Reach. The stag of the Durrandons lined the Stormlands. The sun and spear of House Martell could be found over Dorne. The direwolves of the Starks were all over the Iron Islands and on the north. And finally the shields of the Darklins were nearest to them, covering the kingdom of the Claw. He watched as his son Aegon planned the destruction of House Darklyn. A rich house, saved from the raiding of the Ironborn by House Mallister, unlike House Mallister and by extension House Mud. House Darklyn called themselves the Kings of the Claw and built the supposed greatest castle in history. House Targaryen knew in actually it had barely matched Moat Catlin in SHERE size and took 20 years longer to build and had costed far more gold and lives. Winterfell was incontestably one of the greatest castles in the world. Aegon said these people don't know about dragon warfare as the Giscari or the Free Cities does. If we burn down the supposed greatest castle ever constructed, we can set it as an example. It will strike fear upon them. They will know that they cannot hole up in their castles. And the only other method they know how to fight is with a group of men in the center, a group of men as the vanguard, and a group of men as the flank. A dragon can destroy that formation easily. I agree with my brother, said Ois. By doing so they will be scared to shit. I believe that House Lannister, House Gardener, House Durrandon and House Arryn will ally together to attack us, like they did to the north. Send me a small portion of the army and I will stop House Durrandon from joining this alliance. I hear the current king is extremely arrogant. He will most likely believe that his superior numbers will be enough to win the battle, allowing their men to meet us in battle, in which would let our dragon to burn them to a crisp. As he talked he moved the small dragon head towards the stag. He then pushed the stag piece by Storm's End, tipping it over. Rhaenys said, yes father, while Ois is preparing his army, I can fly to Rosby and all the castles of the Kingdom of the Claw and make them swear allegiance to us. Then I will join him before his attack. While this is happening Visenya can go to the Vale with our navy and attack from there. Visenya snarled at her and said, don't presume to think that you can order me around. Please, stop being so petty. Get over it already. Just because I don't sleep with Dragon Lord Aerion yelled silence. House Targaryen has been planning this for a century and I will not have that plan ruined by your squabbling. Your generation has the perfect opportunity to expand the lands of House Targaryen. I will not allow centuries of careful and intricate planning be ruined by your inability to pay attention. They said at the same time, sorry father, we apologize for disrupting you. Dragon Lord Aerion continued, we have discussed this already. By destroying the Durandons and burning the Arryn fleet, they will not be able to join forces with the Lannister and the Gardeners. All three dragons meet on a previously thought-out date, then attack the Lannister and the Gardeners, burning them alive. House Mud still remains a wild card. But it does not address our main problem. What the fuck are we going to do about the damned Starks and the Martells? As he said this, he was moving pieces on the board, knocking the Hand and the Lion down. Aegon said, why can't we deal with them the same way? Won't the Starks and the Martells surrender after they hear about the destruction of the Lannister and Gardener armies? No, you fool. If you paid any attention to your classes, you would know that the Starks rivals the old Valyrian freehold and the glory days of the Golden Empire of UT, before they fell under immense corruption, betrayal, and civil wars. We have not nearly enough forces to take them, by the sea or the land. Not to mention their natural defenses. But even if they fight, won't they will hide in Wolfsguard? Not if they are smart, and trust me they are. House Stark's line is responsible for the currency, calendar, maps, mathematics, and God knows how many more items that we use. They are trained in sword fighting from the age of 5, where they receive their own battle training from their father and battle master. From the age 14, they lead a group of men dealing with bandits to get battle experience. All firstborn sons are expected to join their standing army and rise to the higher ranks. Their spy network is legendary, and yet no one has found or caught a single spy. They will hear about the fact that staying within their castles would be a suicide and will have prepared for it, if they haven't already. House Stark was worried about an attack from the Valyrian freehold for 6,000 years. Besides, any army will have a hard time marching through the neck. The Crannog men and the Reeds will attack our supplies and kill the guards. We cannot feed the dragons with the game found in the neck, especially if our hunting party gets attacked every turn. The force that reaches Wolfsguard will be too weak. This isn't even considering the giants, mammoths and the children of the forest. Ois then said, then burn down the neck. So you want your brother to rule the Ashes, do you, Ois? No, father. Besides, they have the Congiorn. We can't risk flying our dragons near the north without heavily risking the death of many dragons. Not to mention their mags. Aegon said, but father, I thought the dragons were unbeatable in the air. That is completely inaccurate. While the dragons are bigger, stronger, and can breath fire, the Congiorn are far faster and far more maneuverable. Besides, their riders could shoot you down even before you can burn them. Their archery skills are legendary, matched only by the Order of Green Rangers. Their weirwood bows are one of the greatest bows in the world, only beaten by the Golden Heart bows. But the Dornish should be easy. Right, father? Asked Rhaenys. No, because their fighting style is very different. They are the nightmare of the Dragon Riders, and are descendants of the Freehold's greatest enemy. The Rhoynar are known for their non-direct confrontational manner. They will hide, only attacking in surprise and fleeing as soon as the shock fades away. Dragons never have time to burn them, and their vast desert is a nightmare to keep men hydrated and fed. Even worse for dragons. They are the perfect counters to our fighting style. We must count ourselves lucky for the fact that the Andals purged the water mags from the world, a task not even the Valyrians could do. Ois stepped up and said, Father, I doubt we will be able to come up with a solution in a day. Give us time. Our plan to conquer all but 2 of the kingdoms is sound, father. Once we have these lands, we recuperate and make new plans to attack the north and the Dawn. Very well. Ois, for your plan to work you need to train. Aegon, you will join him. Visenya, you need to find the boats that you will take. Get to know their captains. You are to command them, and for them to follow you, a woman, you need to earn it. Beat them or outplay them, it doesn't matter as long as you earn their respect. Rhaenys, you can just go fly on, you dragon. The siblings nodded at their father and left the battle room. underscore 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 underscore. Aegon was standing in front of the open window of the battle room in Dragonstone. His father had died a year ago. With his death and Aegon's ascension as the head of the Targaryen family, he moved forward with the invasion of Westeros. The Targaryens have been planning this for a century, perfecting their plan, but no Targaryen except him wanted to move forward without a strong plan for all kingdoms. He, unlike his ancestors, was confident in their dragons. The old Valyrian Free hold the greatest power in the known world because of the might of the dragons, and he believed that it would be the case here as well. Aegon looked up from the map and spoke to his bannerman. The day has finally come. The day of reckoning is here. Old Valyria has fallen. But it shall start anew. We will rise from its ashes. We are the blood of the Valyria. These great houses are merely dirt compared to the Targaryen lineage. We must move quickly and dismantle these weak lords and false kings. Our dragon fire will destroy the unyielding lords and leave nothing but fire and blood. We are the child of Valyria. Move out. I want to make our landing in 2 moons. Underscore 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 underscore. Visenya was very angry. She was forced to marry his brother out of duty and tradition, yet she hadn't broken her vows. However, it has been 4 months since she got married to Aegon, and he has not touched her. Her bitch of a sister slept with countless other men, yet Aegon loved her more. She was a better fighter, a better strategist, and she looks just as good as her sister did, yet he chose to love her cheating, useless sister more than her. She walked over to her beautiful dragon. Vigor was an emerald green dragon. He hatched at the same time as her, so when she reached 2 days old, her father gifted him to her. They had bonded together, a young age forming a close relationship. She was preparing for the attack on the Vale Navy. If everything goes to plan, she could even take the Eyrie and force the Arryns and the Vale to submit to the rule of the Targaryens. Personally, she cared not for conquering the 7 kingdoms. Even though she would become queen of the largest kingdom in the world, she had a feeling that although her children having better claim to the throne for being the first wife of Aegon, he would forego such ancient Valyrian traditions and give it to her sister's child. However, no matter how angry she was at her siblings, she will not betray them. So instead, whenever she was angry at them, she went flying. She mounted Vigor and flew high into the sky, leaving behind her worries and problems. Underscore 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 underscore. Crown Prince Cregan Stark was training diligently in the art of war. His training began at the age of 5, like all other Starks. He learned to rule by sitting with his father in the throne room and the great council meetings since he turned to 10 days old. At age 13 he had joined the standing Northern Army, and had risen to the rank of lieutenant by the age 15. He was now 15 and he was aware of the Targaryen fleet and army assembling. The Kingsmen were unparalleled in espionage. Merlin, the spymaster, knew of all the spies sent to them by the other great houses. They were constantly feeding them false information or killing them, to confuse and demoralize the other kingdoms. He trained his skill with his blade daily, knowing that when the Targaryens came, he was expected to lead the army. The entire morning was spent in working on his physical combat abilities, where he was a true prodigy, and through his extreme training and diligence he was near unbeatable. He trained with a group of people he had personally picked out. They were very loyal to him and called themselves the Wintersguard. They wore part plate mail and part leather armor. There were 7 members, all from different backgrounds and each skilled with a different weapon. They were of similar age to Prince Cregan, with the youngest being only 3 days younger and the oldest being 2 days older. The first was Jameson. He was born a commoner and so had no last name. He was found by Prince Cregan, beating back bandits to protect his younger sister and her friends with a wooden stick. He fought quite well against them, seeing as though he was able to beat 2 out of the 5, even though they had steel weapons and he had no training. Of course Prince Cregan stepped in just as he started to lose, quickly disarming them and capturing them. They were given the choice to go to the wall and join the Night's Watch or face ice. They all chose the wall, so Prince Cregan took the leader's 3 left-handed fingers and split up the group, each going to a different fort. Prince Cregan immediately saw the talent which Jameson was born with and offered him a chance to serve him. Jameson agreed on the condition that his younger sister and friends got a place in Winterfell, whether it be handmaidens or as cooks. Prince Cregan immediately agreed and Jameson joined him. He specialized in wielding a bastard blade, training daily with Prince Cregan. By training with Jameson, both of their skills grew rapidly until they were nearly even with each other. Then Lancer joined. He took on the name at such a young age, that he had forgotten his true name. His skill with a spear unparalleled and not even Prince Cregan could beat him. He was half Northern and half Dornish and he was taken as a pit fighter at a young age. He quickly made a name for himself. Once he got so skilled nobody could beat him, he escaped. He came north and challenged Prince Cregan in a spear fighting competition for a job. He trashed Prince Cregan. After seeing many weak spots in Prince Cregan's skill, offered him to join him and Jameson in training. They both improved vastly, although Lancer remained unbeaten in melee. Archer was next. She was from the Summer Isles and became known as a legendary archer. She was gifted a golden heart bow, after saving one of the many princes from an assassin. However, his wife got jealous and spread lies and rumors about her, till the same prince banished her. She left behind the bow and made her way to the north, where she was found after defeating a bunch of rapists, using her bow. Prince Cregan took her under his care, learning from her to become a more skilled bowman. Only Prince Cregan knew her true name, and everybody else called her Archer. Then came Torhen Salt, bastard of a Magna of the Iron Island. He was massive in size matching the Umbers, who is said to have giant's blood. He was a berserker, wielding a 2-handed battle axe, raiding the coast of southern lands. He was so well known that Prince Cregan personally asked him to train in fighting with and against axes, as well as defending from battle-crazed maniac like him. Torhen Salt accepted, happy to have a higher standing in the world and be close to the legendary crowned prince of the north. Then came Shadowsong. She was from Yeti and she told people to call her that, as nobody could properly pronounce her real name and her name roughly translated to Shadowsong. Prince Cregan knew that she came to the north, after she and her team failed to protect her emperor. She was the only survivor of the team and she got banished by the usurper, after failing to kill her many times. She was at best an average swordswoman, but her skill was with her preferred twin daggers. When fighting many men, she would often throw one of the daggers, fight with the other and retrieve the dagger and repeat the process. She was a masterful assassin, nearly rivaling the Faceless Men, not because of any skills like changing faces, but her amazing knack at blending in and disappearing within shadows. She is impossible to find if she hid and because of her advanced knowledge in camouflage, she is able to spot less experienced assassins. Ice Lion was next. He was an escaped Unsullied trainee. He excelled within the brutal training course, but his unorthodox fighting method led him to be beaten many times. One night, he escaped and got on the quickest boat he could find, which coincidentally was a boat heading to the north. His boat was attacked by slavers, but with his unorthodox fighting style he was able to single-handedly bring down all of the attackers. When they reached the north, the boat was confiscated, the slavers' leader and his 3 second-in-command was executed, while the rest of them were sent to the wall. However, when Prince Cregan heard about how Ice Lion had beat them only using a round shield that was on the boat, he would parry, and block with the shield, then slam their throats, stomach or head, quickly knocking them out. Cregan would immediately recruit Ice Lion as a sworn sword. Prince Cregan told him he could pick a new name and he took the opportunity to take the name Shield, for his unorthodox fighting style that had allowed him to meet Cregan. Finally there was Sun Wong, also from Yeti and he was a martial artist. He preferred fighting without a weapon, only ever taking a staff. His art was meant to put down his enemies without killing them, hence the staff. Many soldiers underestimated him at first, but he destroyed such forts when he took on an entire squad of men with only his bare hands. He trained Prince Cregan so if he was ever without a weapon, he would never be helpless. His style incorporated fast punches, powerful finishing kicks, elbows, knees, and even grappling techniques which focused on breaking bone. Crown Prince Cregan trained individually with each member of the Winter's Guard and as well together as a squad. On rare occasions he even tries to take on more than one of them at a time with varying success. After lunch Prince Cregan spends his time in reading the many books in both the Great Library and the Royal Collection. He read all types of books, such as books on finance, war strategy, first aid and other such books. He would also partake in a game of Northern Civis with his father once every week to grow his strategic mind. The North had heard of the Civis and modified it to make it more complicated and more suited to northern warfare. Unlike normal Civis, the northern variant had different boards, to simulate different battlefields, as well as the ability to stimulate all types of battles to a small-scale skirmish, a major battle, all the way to overseeing an entire war. Crown Prince Cregan was very talented at the game, often beating his father, mother, and siblings. The newest house formed in the north was House Swash. His father gifted the Shivering Island to Captain Swash. While not having much land for farming, they had plenty of woods and games. There were rich fishing grounds and all of the ships from Bravos, stopped by the islands bringing much needed trade and income for the house. They married the Magnus Dustin of Barrowton, raising their status and becoming more accepted of the north. All of the northern Magnus knew there would be war soon. They were training their men, and preparing the soldiers. They made new alliances mostly between the north and the Riverlands, and even a few marriages were made between the north and Dawn. They were ready for battle, and for the enemies of the north beware, winter is coming. Underscore 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 underscore. When the Crown Prince Cregan turned 16 days old, the age in which he became a man, the Winter's Guard kneeled in front of Prince Cregan in the throne room and said together, "Crowned Prince Cregan, we offer our service to you." "I offer you my sword, mind, and body," said Jameson. "I, my spear, mind, and body," said Lancer. "I, my bow, mind, and body," said Archer. "I, my axe, mind, and body," said Torhen. "I, my daggers, mind, and body," said Shadow Song. "I, my shield, mind, and body," said Shield. "And I, my staff, mind, and body," said Sun Wong. Then together, they said, "We shall hold no lands. We shall fight for you glory, honor, and success." Prince Cregan said, "I accept you oaths." Prince Cregan stood up from the Crown Prince's throne and nodded to a servant. 7 servants ran forward, each carrying a bundle. He walked over to Jameson and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Saber. You shall wield this blade, Excalibur, till you pass it on to the new Servant Saber." One of the servants walked forward and Cregan pulled out a beautiful blade. It was a bastard blade, with the top half of the grip made out of weirwood and the rest out of winter steel. The pommel was a wolf's head also made of winter steel. The guard was made of Valyrian winter steel with a simple but elegant design carved with runes of the first men. The blade itself was a leaf-shaped blade until the part which connects to the guard, where it went diagonally inwards. Such design was only possible due to the strong properties of Valyrian winter steel. He moved on to the Lancer and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Lancer. You shall wield this spear, Gabolg, until you pass it on to the new Servant Lancer." The spear was made fully out of Valyrian winter steel. The actual blade of the spear was colored blood red. It was a long blade with 2 spikes sticking out, with the blade itself coming out of the mouth of a direwolf. The spear had designs of 4 direwolves crisscrossing over each other meeting at the end to a spike, sticking out of the end. The spear was balanced enough to throw as well. He moved to Archer and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Archer. You shall wield this bow, Agni Gandiva, till you pass it on to the new Servant Archer. I am truly sorry, I was not able to obtain a bow of the best quality, as I have for the other servants. I shall continuously work to get you the greatest bow in the world." The bow was a beautiful weirwood bow. It had carving of direwolves and the runes of the first men, which were highlighted in the blood red of the weirwood tree. It was an amazing bow, but weirwood bows are not as good as a golden heart bow. He then moved to Torhen and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Berserker. You shall wield this axe, Blood Crown, until you pass it on to the new servant Berserker. The axe was a massive two-sided battle axe, made of Valyrian winter steel with an ironwood handle. There was overlay designs of direwolves all over the axe itself, and there was a massive spike at the end. The entire handle was covered loosely in leather, for better grip anywhere on the handle. He moved to Shadowsong and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Assassin. You shall wield these daggers, Kanshou and Bakuya, until you pass it on to the new Servant Assassin." The two daggers were the opposite twins of each other. It was pretty big for a dagger, around slightly bigger than a sax knife. The blade was slightly curved. There was no guard, instead the blade went way over the grip, so the blade became the guard. There was a yin and yang, a symbol from Yi, but one half was a white direwolf, the other a red direwolf. One blade was white, the other red Valyrian winter steel. The handle and pommel was just simple black leather, and bronze. He moved to shield and said, "You will now forever be known as Servant Guardian. You shall wield this shield, Aegis, until you pass it on to the new Servant Guardian." The shield was pure Valyrian winter steel. There was a direwolves in red swirling around with the shield and a white direwolves also swirling in the other direction. It had runes of the first men engraved all over the shield. And finally he stepped in front of Sun Wang and said, "You will